Does it give us a...
Yeah, well, hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Crescent City Gumbo. We're here tonight with sound man Jay Frederic. He's a character, man. I got to know him over the phone. This is the first time we've met in person, actually. We've chatted over the phone. He reached out to me. He likes what Crescent City Gumbo does, so he's like, hey man, when can I get on the show? I was like, let's do it. So we got a little bit of distance between us. We've sanitized. We've done everything we need to do, all short of wearing body condoms and stuff. So, but Jay is a trooper. It's such a pleasure to have him here, and I can't wait to open him up a little bit so you can learn about what goes on around New Orleans for one thing, and around the rest of the country, because Jay's been around, and he's a world renowned, or just in the United States.
Yeah, pretty much around the world.
He's been around. And a lot of people know him.
Japan, Australia. Haven't been to the Middle East.
Haven't been to the Middle East. Okay.
Well, I'm not saying I really want to go to the Middle East.
Okay. Now, I've already asked you this question, but I want these people to hear. I want everybody to hear the answer that you gave me. What got you started in running sound? This is great.
Wow. So, in high school, everybody seemed to be trying to outdo each other with their car stereos. The 6x9 Kenwoods, the 6x9 Jensens. Went to Radio Shack, bought some stuff, built a killer car stereo in my car, and just got to where I found a way that I liked to hear music, I guess. And so one night I went out, we were 17. Zebra was playing at Chez Ami in La Place. And we snuck in, and I stood there and I watched Randy Jackson and Guy and Felix. And I had not really been to too many concerts. I saw Styx when I was like 13 years old. But that was, the big arena. It was, no backstage pass. You were part of the crowd. Here I was standing right next to the band, and I thought, wow, this is so cool. I saw these big giant speakers and everything else, so I decided I want my car stereo to sound like this. And so I went and built all of that. Fast forward a little bit, Fat City. Went to see the Day of Rock and Roll at McAllister's Quarter, where Caleb's was. And see a band called... Turns out it was Steve Nunemacher and Michael Darby and Rick Borer and Rusty Cavalier, and they eventually turned into Lillian Axe. But at that time, I was like, wow, I'm watching Steve play guitar, and I'm like, holy cow, this guy's like a Randy Rhoads. Which Randy Rhoads, the first Ozzy record that just came out, and so. I met him after the show. Really, really nice guy. I got his last name. I was like, Nunemacher. You went to Jesuit? Yes, I know your brother. Oh, okay, cool. Start hanging around trying to just anything I could do. I didn't know, Dominic, I didn't know how to plug in a tuner on a guitar pedal at this point. But Steve took me under his wing, and he said, oh, we'll show you this, learn a few little things here and there. And so we had this guy, Jesse, that was doing sound for the band, and I'd walk by the soundboard. I'm like, wow, look at all those knobs, look at all those things. And, this is a whole, we hauled all the gear in, and big speakers and amplifiers, and I'm just like a deer in the headlights trying to make heads or tails of all of this. But later you realize it's just a giant car stereo.
And you got to realize that back when he was doing this, amps weighed about 50, 60 pounds a piece.
Oh, yeah, we had a rack that, I can remember
today.
Going up it was funny. We had road crew guys pushing it up a ramp of a U-Haul truck in the rain. Sweet. And I got halfway up, and at 500 pounds of amp rack just slid backwards with me. And I think it was Ed Gwynn. I don't know if Ed's watching or not, but I think
a bunch of people watching.
Ed Gwynn caught the rack just before it crushed me to death, because I was 160 pounds soaking wet back then. But anyway, so going forward, so one night Jesse didn't show up, and Steve and I had been hanging out together, listening to music, riding around in my little Toyota with my kick-ass car stereo.
Nice.
And it sounded great, everything sounded great in there. And and one night Jesse didn't show up,
Ooh.
and we were down the bayou somewhere, Lights Fantastic or one of those places down the boat shed or one of those Brian's. It was one of those places. Anyway, I don't remember if it was Michael Darby or if it was Johnny Vines walked up to me and said, "Doesn't look like Jesse's coming. Can you run sound?" And I remember my response was, "I got a great car stereo." That was what I said to him. And he said, "Well, you're about to learn a little bit more than that." And I got behind the board and I started turning. I said, "Okay, this is bass, this is treble, this is this." And if it was mediocre, it was plenty. And the next day, I said, "I've got to go see Melange," which is who Mo Windhorse was working for at the time. And Mo, very, very well known, one of my dearest friends, like a brother to me. Back then, I didn't know him from The Man in the Moon. So I went and saw Melange the following weekend, and I said, "Look," I said, Keith back then, I don't even know if his nickname was Mo yet. I said, "Keith, I got slung into doing sound for Oz, and I said, I really don't understand all of this stuff. Could you show me?" And he was very kind to go through and do that. And he said, "Well, you know, this," and you kind of pick it up a little bit. And with me, once I got the gist of how it all worked, I said, "Well, let me go try again." And so after a few more screw ups, a little bit of screaming feedback here and there, and this and that, I just gradually started to get a feel for it. And between Mo and the band's patience, I kind of got to the point where I could pull it off. And that was, you know, talking about the very, very beginning, that was how I really got started.
That's nice.
But the more I dug into it, the more I could raise that volume knob and feel air moving in the room, the more addictive it was.
That's what it's about, moving air.
It was, it got to be a high for me. You know, it was, you know, I played drums at Jesuit, which, you know, ties some more music stuff together. Joe Kaluta was in the band with me at Jesuit. He was, and he actually was my drum instructor at Jesuit. Later on, I ran into him again as a keyboard player for Persia.
Ooh,
and then
Persia.
More recently, he and I worked together in Sledgehammer. But it was really funny that those early days were very shaky. So what was happening is, what did happen is that Mo would come over and do sound for the band. Had evolved into LILIAN AXE at that point. So Mo would come over and do sound, and I would be right next to him doing lights and studying everything he did. And why did you do that? Why did you do that? And we were all, back then, fairly green. I mean, Mo had some experience, but for the most part, band, crew, everyone, we were green as grass. I mean, we were learning, you know, baptism by fire. Hey, let's pull this off if it works, if it doesn't work. And so we did. And eventually, I got to where the things that Mo was showing me started to sink in, and then kind of got my own twist on it, you know. And so, and then I started playing music in the late '80s. I played in a band called Charade. Well, actually, I was the lead singer for a band called Trouble first. That lasted for a while, and out of Trouble, Bill Ray, who owns Bill Ray Drums now, he played for Ike Turner. He's just got through playing with, I think it was Steve Vai or one of the real guitar virtuosos, and he's playing with a lot of famous people. He owns a drum school out in San Diego. Really proud of what he is. There's a funny story with Bill. See, one thing just leads into another story.
Of course.
I mean, this is just one thing.
Now, a lot of people are digging on your shirt. Yeah, Kathy Kelly said, "Great shirt."
Oh, yeah, Kathy Kelly gave me this shirt.
That's why she's chiming in. We got a bunch of people watching. A couple people chimed in.
So with Bill Ray was a little kid, and he walked into Trouble rehearsal. It was Daryl Arnold, who's like a brother to me forever. Rob Plapkin, another brother to me, and they ended up being in Charade, which is the band that followed this. But so Trouble was this group we put together in Jackson, Mississippi. After I had gone up there with LILIAN AXE, we played a place called the Creek. The Creek was just the ultimate rock and roll bar, and they had, you know, a radio station up there, 98 Rock. Chip Matthews, my dear friend, ran 98 Rock. He Daryl was my friend Trevor, all DJs. It was the most amazing radio station you will ever you could ever imagine. In Jackson, Mississippi, not in LA, not in New York. This station was in Jackson, Mississippi, and you could put it on, and you didn't care if there were commercials because there was not a bad song ever played. So, so we get up to Jackson. So I meet all these guys initially. Daryl, I wanted to kill the first time I met him because he had told a girlfriend that I was seeing in Jackson that I had met in Fort Walton Beach. That we had a hotel room full of girls, which we did at the LILIAN AXE show, but he wasn't supposed to go tell people that. So when I met Daryl, it was like, hey, and we became best friends instantly. So
that's how it works.
And so we never fought, you know. But I was really mad until he explained to me that he didn't realize that I knew these people, and so it was one of those big deals. Anyway, so we decided we're going to start a band. I was doing some musical theater. You know, I had some vocal experience. I said, you know, I want to sing. I said, you know, I've been working with bands for a couple of years now. I said, I'd like to try it, you know. So Daryl played guitar. Another guy was playing guitar in the band, and Rob Plapkin played the bass, and Bill Ray. And so we got this guy, Bill Ray. He's a really good drummer. So I get over to Bill Ray's house, and Bill's watching. You get a kick out of this because he tells this story to his students now at his big drum school. He's got this 4,000-piece drum kit, and you're playing a song that's as simple as an AC/DC song, and instead of boom pop, it's boom digga digga digga. He's all over the place, like
playing cymbals like toms.
Like Neil Peart. And so I walked into the rehearsal room one day, and I said, dude, I learned something from my days at Jesuit with Joe Kaluta, and Joe was taking lessons from Marty Hurley, and so anyway, I learned this deal, and I said, so I took all his toms off the racks, all of his toms. I said, my dad grew up, I grew up listening to guys like Buddy Rich, you know, my dad, you know, jazz.
I love
stuff,
Buddy Rich,
and the most amazing drummer ever lived. And so Buddy Rich, you know, had this little bitty kit, and I said, Bill, you master kick, snare, hi-hat, and then I'll add a drum for you. And I walked away, and he UMF, and he threw a drumstick at me, and it stuck in the sheetrock wall about 3 inches away from my head. And I turned around and I said, you feel better now? And so we recorded some stuff, and Bill, he was a kid then, and as much as he didn't understand that then, now it's one of the things he teaches his guys at
watch out for
at
drumsticks.
Drum so anyway, so we put that band together, and then eventually I came back to Louisiana, and then Daryl called me up one day and he said, hey, we got this band Charade, you need to come see us. And they were playing down the bayou, so I went down the bayou and I saw them, and the guys came up to me and said, look, we need somebody who can play keyboards and can sing vocals. We got to add a little more to the band. So I joined Charade. We did an album. We never finished it. And to this day, well, now Rob, our lead singer for Charade, who was in trouble playing bass, and Daryl, who was our guitar player, who was the bass player in Charade, are doing the Charade Unplugged, and currently, and they're doing a lot of songs. Nice. They're doing some of our originals. Our guitar player, Chris Painter, unfortunately, is not into putting the band back together. Everyone else is in. It'd be fun to do one show. For charity or for whatever reason, that would be really nice to do one show. But anyway, he's not into it. So, gotcha. You know, we respect that. We love him to death, and maybe something, you know, will change in the future.
Yeah.
But
Mike Sluggo said, "All for the love of rock and roll, baby."
Yeah, there you go. All for the love of rock and roll. You know, that's a great point, because I see it, especially working with great songwriters like Steve Blaze. The fans that come up and they talk about the music, and they talk about how this song saved them from a bad situation, or this song helped them get through a bad situation. And Steve talks about it all the time. You know, it's one of the things that touches him the most, is that the fans actually can feel where he's coming from. You know, his songwriters will write a song, and you know, they're writing about something that's personal to them, whether it be a friend or a relative or themselves. And there are a lot of people out there who think nobody knows how I feel. Nobody knows what I'm going through. You don't understand. And then you hear that song and you're like, wow, somebody else gets it. And it just makes you feel better. And so even from behind the soundboard, for me, it's therapeutic. I mean, I've worked with some of my heroes in music, bands that I listened to in the 80s that I'm, you know, I bought their records, crank them up in my kick-ass car stereo. And then years later, I'm at a rock festival and I'm sitting like this talking to Don Dokken. I'm like, and inside I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting next to Don Dokken.
It's like I feel right now.
Externally, oh come on, man. Externally, I'm like, I have to not be fanboy, but
Sure.
you can't help
Sure.
it because, you know,
Man, that's Dokken.
every crew guy that I've ever worked with within the industry, I mean, every single one of them starts out, they're a fan. They're a fan of the music. They're a fan of what they're doing, and the fact that they get to make a living working in the environment that they really love is a total blessing. You know, it's
Absolutely.
a total blessing. So, you know, post Charade, I played a little bit more in a band called Redline, which we never did a gig, but I actually played guitar and keyboards in Redline, which was really funny when you did songs like No More Tears, because I looked like Jeff LaBar from Cinderella, throwing a guitar behind me and play the keyboards and take the guitar back, and I wasn't that good of a guitar player anyway, so I ended up finding where I was and play again, and that didn't last too long. And then I stepped away from music completely.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend at the time. I thought I was going to be getting married and family and all that. And she saw what I was missing in music. She saw that I was missing the music. And at one point, she just broke the relationship off. And she said, it's not because I don't love you. It's because I'm not where you need to be. There's something that's inside of you that you need to pursue. And I was hurt at the time, but thank her for that now, because it was a very selfless act that pushed me out into going into music again. So I played around, tinkered with a few little things, and in the meantime, this sound guy that was working with Charade, because I couldn't be behind the board, so I was teaching Matt Roberson, who turned out to be an amazing sound guy. He's still working up in Jackson, Mississippi. He's a great friend, and guy's chops are just top of the line. He worked with Ray Charles. He's worked with a lot of big acts, and I love him to death like my little brother. And so, but I had stepped away, and Matt was still doing some things in Jackson. And in late 1998, 1999, my friend Chip Matthews contacted me about opening a nightclub. If I wanted to partner up with them at a nightclub in Jackson. And so I went up there, I set up the PA system and kind of got that feel back. And so, you know, brought in bands, did this, did that. The whole thing kind of went up in flames. Meanwhile, Daryl Arnold, who was our bass player in Charade, is an amazing musician. He says, I've got to make it in music. I'm moving to LA. And he did. He moved to LA. We kept in touch. How's it going out there? Oh man, you wouldn't believe. It's great. He said, and so just before 2000, he calls me up. He says, look, dude, he says, if you have any interest in doing sound, you need to get out to LA. I'm like, what? He goes, I'm going to all the clubs. He says, the bands just don't sound like they should sound. I said, well, probably because most of the good guys are out on tour. And he said, well, you need to come out here and check it out. So I went 2 weeks, went out there January, and went over to the Whiskey, went over to the Viper Room, went over to the Roxy, the Troubadour, all the famous places. Handed out resumes, met with some of the production managers, visited up there 2 weeks, and then came back home.
And how old were you at the time?
Well,
You were still pretty
it
young.
was 2000, so yeah, it was 30, ish.
So you had a good bit of years
Ish.
behind you already. You were solid sound engineer by this time.
But I didn't. It's one of those things where, and I guess that it'll be further into the story. But I didn't realize how much I knew until someone brought it to the forefront for me, which I'm forever thankful. Some people that I'll mention here coming up. So around April, I get a call from Leonard Contreras, who is the production manager at the Whiskey, and he says, "Hey man, you still interested in working here?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I just, months have gone by, I didn't hear anything." He says, "Well, I'm going out on tour with Slayer, and and he says I need someone to with your level of experience to kind of run things over here while I'm gone." Now, it's just not a high-paying gig at all. It was a $10 an hour job.
But back then, $10 was worth something.
Well, in LA, $10 is not.
Even back then.
But
yeah.
when you're living with somebody, you share expenses. I mean, it's that same old thing. So so I said, "Well, Leonard, yeah, I'll pack my car. I'll be there in a week." And I did. I packed up the car. I went out there. I left my family business. I wasn't married, but the business was okay. My dad had a couple guys working for us, and so I got out there and started the Whiskey. My first gig at the Whiskey, the first night, Leonard says, "Look, these guys are going to show up. The Atomic Punks, greatest Van Halen tribute band that ever existed. Some people say they're better than Van Halen was. Jury's out on that, but amazing guys." So it was Russ Parrish, who's in Steel Panther now, the guitar player, and the lead singer for Steel Panther, Ralph, were in this band. I didn't know them from The Man in the Moon. So he says they're not going to sound check. They're just going to step on stage and start playing. So I said, "Okay." So he said, "Just do the best you can, dial it up as quick as you can." Well, fortunately for me that night, there was a pretty talented band that played right before them. And so what I did is I made sure that I channel matched what I was, the band before, when my guy that was running monitors turned out eventually become a really good friend of mine. I said, "Would you please mic everything exactly like it's mic'd now, so that I at least have a starting point for the channels?" So we got through that gig, and Ralph came up to me after the show. He goes, "Who are you?" I was like, "I'm Jay. How are you?" He's like, "No, like who are?" I said, "I just moved out here from New Orleans." He said, "Well," I'm not patting my own back, but his exact words. He said, "People are telling me my band's never sounded this good before." I said, "Well, I just moved out here," and I said, "But thank you very much. I just made it sound like Van Halen. I mean, I don't know what else to do." So we got into the regular shift at the Whiskey and met some really great people. Met some really great musicians. John Waite from the Babies came in there and played. John Waite, it was so funny. Break into a little side story. I get a call from this company, Nelson Sound. So we're bringing in an XL4, which is a big Midas console. I mean, big.
Yeah.
Weighs
62
1,100 pounds. And I said, "For what?" And he said, "John Waite's monitors." And I said, "Well, we have a monitor board." He goes, "No, John Waite's monitors." We're surrounded with EAW wedges, 6 of them in a circle around the lead singer's mic. And he said, "We're going to need you there that night. We don't pass this off to one of your other guys. We're bringing in our best monitor guy, and we've got to get the monitors ridiculously loud because John Waite is deaf, pretty much." And so I was like, "Well, I don't know what y'all call ridiculously loud, but we'll see." So the guys from Nelson Sound show up. We build this thing, and we get to the sound check, and we're checking the mic, and the tour manager walks up and goes, "Louder." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm holding a dB meter in my hand, and I'm like this on the microphone. 132 decibels, A-weighted. That's insane.
Somebody's going nuts with the smiles and the love and stuff. Randy Conscience?
Conscience, yeah.
Yeah, Conscience.
So I'm sitting here going, this is insane. So John Waite steps up, and BG, the guy from Nelson, has got this thing dialed up that loud with no feedback. And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what you did, but this is pretty amazing." So John Waite steps up and he talks into the mic, and it's blasting out. And he said, "I can't hear it." He says, "But you're okay." So I can feel it. And I was like, okay. Yeah, people across the street can feel it. And so we got through that. We got through. So that was a little interesting side story with some.
Sure.
So the guy was very cordial. He understood he was deaf. He wasn't screaming and throwing mic stands at people and things like that. But yeah, the time at the whiskey. I mean, I could go one story to the next with you. I don't know. You guys have any things y'all want to talk about?
Well, Lonnie said great stories. I did see one comment a little while ago that I was holding off. I didn't want to interrupt you. Let's see if we can find it.
Let's see where we're at.
Let's see. Mike Sluggo off of the love. Let's see. Donald J. Martin. Had the privilege of working with Jay. Great sound guy and all-around cool dude. Great shirt. Love the shirt. Donald Martin. Hey, guys. Let's see. Mike Sluggo was the first comment. Said, "Hey Jay."
Hey, all right. So
all right.
Well, I'm glad some of you guys are enjoying this. You know,
Great
this is
stories.
my first time doing something like this. When Dominique called me, you know, I said, "Sure, I'd love to do it." And I'm hoping that it's interesting enough for people.
Well, people want to know what it's like. People want to know. There's a lot of sound engineers around New Orleans that want to get into it.
Well,
maybe move to the next level.
I'll throw a shout out. I'll throw a shout out to all of the guys who do this for a living, because it's very difficult to, you think about 50, 100, 200, 300,000 watts of power and 20, 30, 40 open microphones. What could possibly go wrong? You know, and it's organized chaos. And doing sound, mixing audio is nothing more than an opinion when it comes down to it. I have an interesting story to tell that leads me into how I came to that. But so when you know, when I step in front of the board now, I still work for LILIAN AXE. I still occasionally do shows for Zebra, which, you know, go all the way back full circle. 17 years old, Chez Ami. I saw Zebra, said, this is what I want to do. Come back 2015, 16 or so, I get a call from Guy Gelso to run sound for Zebra. So how cool was that? You know, that was really, really cool. And so, and then Sledgehammer, and then a band out of Memphis that I'm going to tell you guys about. But it really comes down to, you know, you're in a room. In some cases, there are things you can't do anything about. You know, people come up, hey, it's kind of loud. Well, if the room is very cavey and bouncy and lively, it's going to be loud. I mean, you hit a snare drum with the PA off, and it's racking your brain. Yeah. That gives you an idea of what you're in for. And so every night it's a different thing. Concrete floors, hard ceilings,
windows,
carpeted walls, windows, glass. On a cruise ship, I had to mix in a room that was entirely glass.
Ooh,
and with LILIAN AXE a couple of years ago. And I was fortunate enough to mix some heroes of mine, Armored Saint. Another story I'll share in a minute. But
getting
anyway,
some comments, man.
So that was really, really funny that that I that you know, people have to understand. I go back, I'm kind of talking over myself, but people have to understand that that guy standing behind the board's got the most difficult job in the room, and anything short of it just being complete pandemonium and feeding back and bleeding your ears, chances are they're doing the best they can with the situation that they've been dealt.
Like Randy said, only as good as you sound, man.
Yeah. So when we get to anyway, I doing sound at the Whiskey. I'm over there one day, and Frank, who was Sheryl Crow's front of house engineer, great audio engineer. I don't remember his last name, but he was a little Scottish guy. He had little short knuckles. Looked like he just wanted to box you. And heavy Scottish accent. And he came over and he wanted to borrow a microphone or something. And I was sound checking the band. And he came up to the board and he goes, "Don't know who you are, I'm Frank." And I said, "Yeah, I see you on Monday nights when Metal School plays," which is now Steel Panther.
Right.
But back then they were called Metal School. Metal Shop, actually.
Metal Shop.
And he says, "Wow, sounds great." You know, and I was like, "Well, thank you." I said, "I'm new here." And he says, "Well, how long you been here?" I said, "I've been about 2 weeks." I said, "But the money is not that great." But I said, I'm working at the Whiskey A Go-Go. I mean, this is a place you dream about just being able to go to a show.
Yeah, just show
I'm
them
behind
out,
the board, So he says, well, great job. Well, a couple of days later, Frankie comes back over, and he says, what's it going to take to get you out of the whiskey? And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, Steve, my assistant, is going into his own business. He opened a cookie cart. And he was selling chocolate chip cookies right outside of the Viper Room. So drunk people walking up and down Sunset Boulevard,
Product
grown
placement.
adults buying chocolate chip cookies and milk, drunk off their asses. So there was no going to Denny's or anything. No, we're going to go get cookies from Steve. So Steve's making bank outside on Sunset Boulevard.
Brilliant.
And he says, I'm going to pay you way more money than the whiskey. You don't work there anymore. You work at the... And I said, okay. So I go over to Viper Room. Leonard was back from tour. So I checked with Leonard. I said, look, I'm not going to leave you short. The Viper Room's offering me a lot of money. I said, I'll take shifts when you need me. I said, but I can't turn this down. I need, got to pay rent. Got to buy groceries. So went over there and I started doing every Monday night with Metal Shop. Every Monday night. And Ralph from the Atomic Punks, he sees me up in the little, at the Viper Room. Johnny Depp still owned it at the time, and he would pop in from time to time. And that place was interesting because I'd come down the stairs from the sound booth, and there's Steven Tyler and Meatloaf sitting with Johnny Depp, and and you just, I'm supposed to not go all fanboy, It's like, hey guys, just walk away, hey guys, and you get outside and you're like, holy crap. Well, eventually it got to be, fairly normal, but so we're in there. So Tammy Down from Faster Pussycat was the DJ for Metal Shop. It was like an 80s night. I mean, they played 80s covers, and it was 80s nights. So so he came down one day after, he's like, man, you got this place sounding great. I said, thank you very much. I'm a big fan of your band. So really enjoyed you guys in the 80s, and so good to see you still doing stuff. So started kind of molding into the Hollywood crowd when I moved to the Viper Room, because Big Ed, who was a security guard, was that guy. You see the TV shows, MTV, or even in the movies and television, the guy holding the velvet rope.
Right.
Okay, so he's holding the velvet rope. There's 1,000 people trying to get into the Viper Room. It only holds 200. So we, people coming and going, and so Big Ed and I got to be good friends. So one night, Daryl, I was talking about earlier, a bass player from Charade who had got me to move out there in the first place. Daryl and I said, let's go. There's a big Hollywood party, so we're gonna go mac on some actresses and models, and we're gonna go put some charm on them and see what we can do. And I was like, dude, we don't have the bankroll for that. He goes, we don't need the bankroll. He said, fake it till you make it. I said, all right, dude, let's go for it. I said, but how are we gonna get in? You got to be on the guest list. You got to get past the velvet rope. And he says, come on, man, we're us. We're going to figure it out. So we get down there, and there's a line of people down Hollywood Boulevard trying to get into this party. And these parties aren't all that. It's more about the fact of getting in than it is about really what's going on in here. And we're walking down the street, and I'll never forget this. It was so vivid. Daryl and I are walking, and this girl comes around the corner and just almost knocks Daryl down. It's Paris Hilton, screaming at someone because she can't get in the party.
Oh.
And so we're walking down a line of people, and she's pacing back and forth, and we see all these people we recognize. Hey, that's that guy from such. There's that guy. Vince Vaughn was in line trying to get in. Ron Perlman, who later went on to fame with Hellboy, and then with Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
And so Daryl and I are walking. I'm like, dude, look who's in line. There ain't no way we getting in. Well, we're walking. We get all the way to the velvet rope, and guess who's holding the rope? Big Ed. Jay, my man, what's going on? I said, Ed, we trying to get up in this party. He goes, man, this is a celebrity party. I said, we trying to get up in this party. He said, how many you got with you? I said, me and my boy here. Come on in. We
Wow.
walk in. Paris Hilton looked at like, who are they? All these other people like, who are they? We were like, we're in. That's who we are. We're people inside the party. So we walk in. Daryl, if you know Daryl, and a lot of people that are on this right now know Daryl. Daryl will talk to anyone, anytime, and say some silly stuff. He's a great conversation starter. And we walk in, and we see Leif Garrett in the crowd, and he goes, "Dude, that's Leif Garrett. That's Leif Garrett." And I said, "Yeah, we don't know him." He's like, "I'm gonna go say something to him." I said, "What do you say to Leif Garrett?" I don't know, you know. So we walk over there. He gets behind Leif and he whispers in his ear, "Are you looking for a special kind of girl?" One of Leif's songs. Leif turns around and goes, "Dude, where did you pull that?" And he goes, "I'm buying you a drink." Leif, one of the nicest guys you ever meet. And it was so funny. He and Daryl ended up in a band together.
Oh, wow.
Called F8. And sorry if we're ignoring comments over here. I'm looking now.
Yeah,
Didn't know I had a drumming background. Yeah.
That's Donald Martin.
Yeah, Donald. Yes.
You know Donald?
Yeah. Donald comes to a
Six
lot of
Gun
Sledgehammer
Solution
shows.
Yeah.
We're doing. I did marching drums, and never really got behind a kit because drummers never got girls until Tommy Lee came along.
Yeah.
Les Potter, Jay's always been a great clean. Yeah, thank
Way to
you,
go,
Les.
Jay.
Les was one of my partners in our nightclub down in Jackson. He was a charade fan, and sound and lights are just as important as the music. I don't know about lights.
Well,
I like to bust on light guys.
I don't know, man.
I like to bust on light guys.
That's how I got started,
It's
was
all
with
in
light.
fun. It's all in fun.
Joey Anthony said, "I haven't been to a show that you mixed for any of them that were bad."
Well, thank you, Joey.
Great job,
Thank you,
Jay. Casinos?
Oh, Andy Mouno. Yeah, Andy is one of the big LILIAN AXE fan. He builds guitars. He's just a great overall guy, and he's a big fan. And yeah, Casinos is an amazing Italian restaurant over in Mandeville.
Sure.
Great food. Mike Casino is just a great guy, but they put Sledgehammer in there. This is a place that's built for Randy Jackson acoustic.
Yeah.
Okay, and Sledgehammer is a loud arena rock band, and we got in there the first time. I mean, one part of the PA went over here, and the other part of the PA was over here. There was nothing balanced. There was phasing issues and all kinds of things, and we sorted it out. But the first sound check we did over there, I turned around and I let everyone know that it was going to get really loud. And it's a good little side story, funny little side story. And I don't know if Andy, if you were there or not that night, but I told everyone in the restaurant, I said, I'm gonna put the PA system on really loud. If anyone's not up for that, I'll wait until you're done eating, and then we'll go. So I put in my tuning song, and I cranked it loud. And this guy, he looked like Hulk Hogan, came from the back of the club and got right in my face next to the soundboard, screaming, "Turn that shit down!" I pulled it down slowly and I said, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "That is ridiculous." And he's screaming and yelling. I said, "Dude, let me tell you something." I said, "I just came back there and I asked y'all politely that we were going to turn the music up loud, very loud. And that if you had a problem with it, I'd wait for you to finish eating. And now you're up here in my face." I said, I don't get it. I said, "You had your opportunity to speak up." And he's screaming and screaming, and Blaze is about to come off the stage to back me up because this dude's big. And I had my leg cocked. All I was going to do was try to collapse his knee because that was the only chance I had if he got violent with me. But I was not going to initiate anything because it's not who I am. So talked to the guy. He went back to his thing. I said, "Well, we'll wait." So came out and he said, "No, we're going to finish our sound check." And I turned around and I said, "We're going to finish our sound check." Well, the guy goes storming out. A little bit later, somebody else walks up and goes, "You were really rude. You were this, you were that." I was like, "You were in here. I politely asked everyone." It turned into this thing. Well, we get outside. This starts moving outside. And this is stuff we did in the early 80s. This is not stuff you do as older men, And these rednecks are
Andy, right behind the bar.
yeah, right.
Right behind the board, went outside with you.
Yeah. So we're outside, and people are yelling and screaming, and we're telling them, you just go home, come back for the show if you want to. If you don't want to, I don't care. Just get out of our face so we can finish what we're doing. And this guy starts bowing up. Well, one guy bows up, and Guy Gelso from Zebra
Guy Gelso
comes across the parking lot, fists up like Popeye, ready to clock this dude. And we're all looking at him like, holy shit, look at Gelso over here like Popeye. And it was like we were all 20 again. Because back when we were 20, stuff like this happened. Yeah. And you ended up with fights or, whatever. And we're like, wow, we're all grown men like we're 20 again. And it was insane. It was just completely
Somebody would have broke a hip.
Yeah. I mean, we're worried about, hey, I can't kick you very high, so could you lay down so I could kick you? So, but anyway, back to the Viper Room thing and all that. So we, we've got different. So I'm doing the Viper Room. So Tammy, after a couple of weeks of doing these Monday nights, he says, "Look, we're going out on tour with Poison." He goes, "I want you to do sound for us." And I was like, "Wow, okay, this is what I moved out here for. Go on
absolutely.
tour." So I went out and with those guys, and it's funny. I've become like brothers with all of those guys now, but at the time we had a little controversy a few shows in that I ended up leaving the tour and going back to LA. But since then, Christian, Danny, Chad, Tammy are all like among my closest friends. And I love those guys to death. And everybody knows it was a bunch of crap that somebody in Poison pulled. And anyway, but they were the headliner, so that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But so when I get back home, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? It was my first lesson in lack of loyalty in LA. So all these people at the Viper Room, man, you're saving our ass, man. You're showing up doing these showcases and you're keeping everything running and all this. When I left to go into it, man, we're gonna really miss you. Your job's waiting for you when you get back. I get back, I can't get a shift at the Viper Room. Like, wow, what have you done for me lately? A good friend that I had met out there, Dish. He was the drummer at the time. He was the drummer for Pretty Boy Floyd.
Ooh. One
of the coolest, nicest, best guys you'll ever meet in your life. And he's like, dude, he says, I'll do everything I can to help you. And he let me, I stayed at my apartment. He said, but when you, he said, I'll look around. He said, I'll try to find you something.
That's cool.
Well, I had gotten Dish to take some of my shifts at the Viper Room, so he was just reciprocating. And so, about a week later, I get a call from Dish, and he says, hey, I just got a call from Steve Riley of LA Guns. They need a sound guy. Their guy is sick. He had TB or something crazy that he was in quarantine. That's so much different than what we are now. And he said, so I don't know how long the gig's going to last for, but Tracy, I had worked with Tracy Guns at the Viper Room one night, and the first time I met Tracy Guns, I asked him to turn his guitar down. And the guy who was with me, who was working with me, Pete, who taught Dave Grohl to sing, so all this stuff kind of ties in. Pete was an amazing vocalist who taught Dave Grohl to sing. And so Pete says, I said, tell that guy to turn down. He said, that's Tracy Guns, you don't tell him to turn down. And I said, well, he's got to turn down. It's too loud for the room. He says, you go tell him then, because I'm not going to tell him.
Yeah.
So I walked down the stairs, and I got down there, and I introduced myself, and I said, I need you to turn the guitar down a little bit so I can get you in the mix really well. And he said, okay. I was like, does anyone ever ask him to turn down?
Yeah.
And look, Tracy is really, really big on his tone. And like with most guitar players, like Steve Blaze, same thing.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain amount of volume in a tube amplifier to get the right tone.
Sure.
Or you're just uncomfortable. And so you don't want the guys to be uncomfortable, but sometimes you reach a happy medium. Steve and I have been working together for so long that we really have tweaked it out, really well. And and that's the willingness of the musician to work with the sound guy.
It's the best kind.
And so So Tracy and I had met. So and then Adam Hamilton was playing bass with them. And Adam is a friend of mine from originally from Shreveport. Adam is one of the most successful producers in Hollywood. I'm so proud of him. All the things that he just produced a record for William Shatner. Believe it or not, Shatner's doing like these
spoken
crazy
word,
recorded
like Henry Rollins stuff,
sorta kind of thing. Yeah, and it's great. And you know, Adam's working with some of the best musicians in the world, and he does a lot of stuff for television. He's written his own music. He's an amazing musician: guitar, bass, drums, everything. And he was in a band with Craig Bradford, who Craig is now tour manager for Mr. Big and Rad and a lot of bands, and he's working now. You know, I mean, Craig is, I'm not sure who he's out with. Oh, he was just out with Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh,
so
my daughter loves Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah.
She's 5, so she's 6 now. Patrick McCarroll.
That's my nephew.
Let me
borrow that hoodie. Andy said, "Guy saved the day." Yes, he did. He did.
I wish I could have seen that.
So yeah, that was. I don't know if anyone got that on camera or not. We'll have to ask around and see if anybody got it on camera. I don't know, Andy. Maybe you know. But so anyway, so I get on the bus, and there's Adam and there's Tracy, and I didn't know the other guys in the band at the time, and so so Adam's like, "Dude, great, you're gonna be out with us," and he looks at Tracy. He's like, "This guy's really good," and Tracy's like, "Yeah, I know. I worked with him at the Viper Room. He told me to turn down." Like, that was one of the first things he told me to turn down, and he's like. And Adam just started laughing. And he goes, "Well, by the time somebody did, or something smart alecky like that." And he said, "I said, man, wow, this is gonna be fun." And I met Brad Nelson, who was our tour manager. And I can tell you, with all the experience I had up to that point, with between the early days of Oz and Lillian Axe, and then playing in Charade. And then even those first couple of months or whatever at the Viper Room and the whiskey and all of that. When I met Brad Nelson was the first day I started learning the music business.
Ooh.
I mean, Brad was such a mentor to me in the fact that he's like, he's just that guy that had been there, done that. He was LA Guns tour manager during their heyday. He worked with Killing Joke. He worked with the Choir Boys, Paul McCartney, Eric Clapton. It's not very often you meet a guy who tells you, "Yeah, Clapton still owes me $50." I'm like, dude, the fact that you were in a room with Clapton is blowing my mind. So So Brad started teaching me a lot of things, and look, Brad and I are like brothers, and we got when we established our relationship. It was a little rocky at first because there were times when I guess I tried his patience to some degree, but he never discouraged me. And same thing with there was a time after all of that I thought about maybe getting out again, and it was the encouragement of Adam Hamilton and Tracy Guns and Philip Lewis. Those guys were like, you're too good at what you do to walk away from it. You need to keep doing this. And so, those guys really encouraged me along the way. And now, remember, I was completely detached from the New Orleans scene at this point. So I hadn't seen the guys in Lillian Axe or any of that in forever during the early 2000s. And when I got back after Katrina, I reestablished myself with Steve Blaze and guys in Lillian, and then Steve has just been you talk about encouragement and just a positive person. If you've ever had an opportunity to have a conversation with Steve Blaze, he will never tell you that what you're doing is not right. If you believe in it, and if you want to pursue whatever it is, you can guarantee that he's Mickey in your corner.
One heck of a mentor,
man. And it's the relationships and the friendships that I've built over the years are just priceless. It's you don't always talk to these people, you don't always see these people, but we go to the Monsters of Rock cruise and I run into all of these guys. I give you an example. When Charade was trying to get a record deal, we're flashing back to 1989. We went to Foundations Forum. It was where bands would. Oh Lord, did you ever work with Avatar? Yes, I did work with Avatar. That was Eddie and what's the guy? The guitar player's name? Moses? Was it Moses? No, it was God. I don't remember. But I remember Eddie. And I did work with Avatar. In fact, I did a recording. Did some audio engineering for Avatar. James Griffin, who we recorded our charade record at his studio. He was the engineer for "Ring My Bell" for Anita Ward, the disco hit.
I love that song.
Had the platinum records on the wall, and he just said, you guys do your thing, and we recorded the charade record there, and then we did some stuff for Avatar. Amos. That was it. Amos.
Oh, we got Willie Cortez. He's in Colorado saying hey.
Yeah, Amos. So, those guys were great. They were great to work with. I think there was a guy named Kerry was in the band too. He was a guitar player. But I forgot where I was now. I think we were.
Anita Ward with Ring My Bell.
That was a side story.
Okay. Avatar.
So in Avatar, that was all side stories. See, y'all get me distracted.
Hey man, you got so many good stories. I'm digging this.
So we're out with LA Guns. I'll get back to that part. And so I'm to me, okay, again, I'm fanboy. And it was LA Guns, Rat, Warrant, Firehouse, and Dokken was this rock fest. So I knew the guys from Warrant. We had done some shows with them. Charade did a show. We played an after party with Trickster and Warrant played up in Shreveport. That was a debacle I could save for another night. They gave Charade an entire floor of a hotel, a deluxe hotel. Gave us the keys to like 12 rooms. And I can't tell you the debauchery that happened that
It's a family show, man.
There were police involved, and the guys in Warrant really got mad at us because they were looking for some girl who was missing, and we hadn't seen her. Honestly, we hadn't seen her. And Daryl, who again is Mr. Shitstirrer, said, I think they got on the bus with that band Warrant and they headed towards Dallas. They pulled the bus over and cleared the bus out, and those guys were kind of mad at us for a while. But anyway, so I'm walking around fanboy. I'm like, there's Don Dokken. Wow, there's Mick Brown. And on that tour, I got reacquainted with Craig Bradford, who was in a band. We was in Joey C. Jones, and he was in a band called Nobody's Children. From Shreveport, that was around when Charade was around. And we hadn't seen each other in forever. Got where I first met my dear friend John Karabi, who is, and I tell you, single most talented musicians. John Karabi is right there with anybody. He is just absolutely. If you get a chance to see his acoustic show, he is just amazing, absolutely amazing talent. And John Stensland and Darren Meeks and the guys in Firehouse. I got to become friends with the guys in Firehouse, and so those connections. Well, we did the Rock Fest around the whole U.S. and then Brad says, "Hey, you got your passport, right?" Like that's just supposed to be a thing. You just everybody's got a passport. Passport? Now, where do I get a passport? We're going to Europe in 3 weeks. Europe? Wow, never been there. So I go through all the motions, get my passport just in time, get on this international flight. Never been in the air for 9 hours at one time. Get to Europe, get to England first. Hey, everything's great. People talk with a funny accent. And, Phil Lewis is like, well, maybe I'll give Elton a call. I'm like, God, dude, what, you got Elton John and he's like, hey, let's go over to Abbey Road. Like, it's all normal to them. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, really? You guys do all that? And inside, I have to keep the fanboy contained. Outside, I'm like, wow, this is just insane. So we go through England, we go through Scotland, we cross the English Channel, and we get to Italy. And then reality kicks in. People here speak Italian. And people in England and Scotland spoke enough, English with the accent, but you still understand. Then reality sits in. We have an interpreter. We have all these, it's like all of a sudden there are a few people who speak English, but for the most part, you're a deer in the headlights. You're in a foreign country now, and you don't get it. How's the money work? Here's my visa. Just take whatever you think it's supposed to be. This goes everywhere, and I don't know how ripped off I got. Who knows? So we play Venice, and then we go the Saturday before Easter. So it would be this coming Saturday. The Saturday before Easter, we have a show in Rome. So 6 people between band and crew, and Enough's Enough. The band Enough's Enough was with us. So there's 6 of us between the 2 bands are Catholic. And we have the opportunity to go to Easter Mass at the Vatican. And we're like, we're not missing this. So we had to play. We didn't have to play until Tuesday night in Milan. So we stayed. So I got to go to Easter Mass at the Vatican. That was insane.
I bet.
And then, going through the Alps, going into Austria, and then I met who I thought was the love of my life when we got to Sweden. We stayed together for 11 years.
Wow.
Long distance. And then when it got down to it, she just couldn't leave her family, and that's what it came down to. But the connections, people in England, Chris Tudor-Jones, Ian, his buddy Ian, some of those stories. We're riding, everything in Europe is a double-decker bus. And some of these crossover bridges, there's like this much clearance for the for the bus. And so there's a hatch in the second floor. And you open this sunroof, and you can, you stand up on something, and you're looking out, and you're looking over the mountains and stuff. And I could see from the back of the bus, I could see out of the front windshield, and Ian was in the skylight, and I see the bridge coming, and I mean, I looked like Ricky Jackson on a blitz. Ran as fast as I could, and I grabbed him right at the hip, and when I pulled him down, his head was about that far from the bottom when the door slammed closed.
Oh.
He missed by about 2 inches of losing his head. Chris Tudor-Jones tells that story all the time. That was just insanity. We got locked out of. Somebody lost the key to the trailer, and going back to the charade days, they used to call me MacGyver. And for anybody who's watching that knows me, they know, is that Frozen?
Frozen. Oh, the video's frozen, but the comments still come in.
So this little screwdriver right here has rescued me from so many things, and I still carry one. But when I was in, we were in Europe, and the trailer was locked, and we didn't have a bolt cutter, and we had an old master key that didn't fit the new lock.
There it is.
Yeah. So we had an old master key that didn't fit the new lock. And we I got it to go in, and there was an old man in Laplace back when I was a kid, when I lost the keys to my car, that showed me how to etch a key. So I'm on side of the interstate in Austria, I think it was. That's 12 degrees. And I'm putting the key in and wiggling it back and forth, and it won't move. And on the concrete, I am scratching out this key. And after about 20 minutes, I put the key in and I turned it, and the lock unlocked.
Wow.
We didn't have a bolt cutter. I mean, I guess we would have found one, but it was more of a challenge to do that.
It's more fun, too.
Yeah. So, anyway, the stories just sort of run together. Does any of the people that are watching have any specific questions?
Yeah, you got any questions for Jay? I mean, if you know him from the past, any good stories that he might not be thinking of, anything you want to remind him of, chime in.
We could talk about stories forever.
So, what are you doing these days? Who are you working with, like, currently?
Right now, I'm still doing LILIAN AXE and Sledgehammer, which is a side project from Steve Blaze and Michael Max, Danny King. The original guys, well, I say original, the LILIAN AXE that climbed to fame in the early 80s, that lined up with Johnny Vines, God rest his soul. Johnny passed away from brain cancer a few years ago, that was really really bad. He was such an amazing human being. And it's got Jesse Mack, who was on the scene back when Charade played the Creek and Jackson and all that. And Josh LaRose, who, when I first met Josh, he was a guitar phenom from Thibodeau, and he was 14 years old playing Mr. Crowley on guitar, and just crazy. But that all just kind of came together. And originally Sledgehammer was Guy Gelso, Joe Coluda, Steve Blaze, and Brent Graham, who is now the new singer for Lillian Axe.
Right.
Just here recently in the last couple of weeks. And then that lineup changed. Brent left, Troy Marks came in, Troy left, Sonny Kane came in, Sonny left, and then Jesse came in. And then Guy and Joe are doing a project with Derek Lefebvre. That is, he's just a freaking singing robot machine.
Yeah.
The guy's so amazing.
He's a vocal god.
And Andrew Otan, they're doing New Orleans rock show, and they're gonna do like Journey and then
Andrew
Foreigner.
was talking about that.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a really great band to go check out. And all the guys who grew up on the scene here from the early '80s, the guys in the Molly Ringwalds, the guys in the Chiwis, No Idea, Troy Marks. Troy Marks could step onto the stage with Iron Maiden in a second.
He's a great frontman.
If people closed their eyes, they would not know Bruce wasn't there. I mean, he's just a powered, great singer, great guy, great friend, hard-working guy. In fact, I played in No Idea for about 2 weeks when it first came together. Troy contacted me after Charade split up. He said, "Man, I've always wanted to work with you." He said, let's do this. He said, "I don't know how to flip burgers. I don't know how to do anything else but music." And he said, "I'm going to make a living in music somehow. We're going to do weddings and fraternities." I was in very early stages of No Idea. And I went and jammed with him a couple of times, and it just wasn't my thing. And now those guys are all making a lot of money. And so, but I think everybody in the industry, Keith Ballas, who was a drummer in Straight Jacket Smile, he now owns a big production company, Rockstar Enterprises. He does PA rental. So I think everybody found their spot. Like, we all were in this ball together and doing what we were doing. And then everybody sort of landed where they needed to be. And, the universe has a crazy way of doing all that. I've had dreams of playing on stage with Steve Blaze and Michael Max and Danny King. The guys are my heroes. I'm still a huge fan.
Oh yeah.
Of the bands. Rob Hovey's playing drums for Lillian Axe. I've always been a huge fan of Rob's from way back when I met him. And Rob's also an excellent audio engineer. And I get complimented by Rob, and that's one of the greatest compliments you can get, is when another audio engineer is telling you, especially when he's behind a drum set and he's trusting that, because engineers, guys who know sound and play music, are extra critical of the guy doing sound in a way. They're like, does it sound as good as I would make it sound, sort of thing in the back of their mind. And with Rob and I talked about it on the phone a couple of days ago, the trust that all those guys have in me, that's part of having your guy. Mo has gone on to, Heart, Salt and Pepper. He's doing Journeys, currently Journey's front of house engineer.
Nice.
And, Mo's ability behind the board is just phenomenal. But Mo as a person, he's just the most likable person you ever be around, and that's gotten him a long ways too. His personality and his ability have come together. There's nothing that guy can't do. And I still talk to him from time to time.
Donald was asking, didn't he do sound at Rockin' the Bayou last year? Keith?
I don't know. Rockin' the Bayou, Mo wasn't at Rock the Bayou. My good friend Tony Avatar was at Rockin' the Bayou with Firehouse. And then I did Lillian. We did Lillian acoustic. That was different. On a big,
I bet you that
stage.
was fun.
Well, it was. And Rob was playing what they call a cajon.
I have one.
Yeah. And to mic up a cajon, so you're getting kick and snare.
Yep.
He played it brilliantly and gave me everything I needed. It was. It's great when you have musicians who play and singers who sing in a way that they're giving you what you feel like You know, like what they feel like you need to make them sound good. And when a singer is singing 100%, when the guys are giving you all their dynamics, and I've been blessed to work with some really, really talented musicians that, you know, make my job easier.
Well, true professionals will make it easy
The
for you.
Chiwis, that night, the Chiwis was, Donald, that was Keith Ballas, who was an excellent front of house engineer. He was a drummer in Straight Jacket Smile. Now he, like I said, he owns this big production company. He's a really, really good engineer. Just saw him at the John Walton tribute they did down with when John Walton passed away. They did a memorial. His company did sound for that, and he was mixing Brent Graham's band. Drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Supercharger.
Supercharger.
Yeah, so
I like Supercharger.
And now Brent's not in Supercharger anymore. This whole thing is kind of intertwined, and you know, the New Orleans music scene. I mean, even the heavier bands, you know, Phil Anselmo,
Yeah.
Kirk Winstein, all those guys doing the heavy stuff, Crowbar and Down, and you know, you had Corrosion of Conformity, Acid Bath, all those bands that were back in the late 80s through the 90s. Kirk just did a solo record that's absolutely brilliant. You know, this whole scene was a brotherhood. You know, I kind of met the LA guys, you know, with all the touring and everything. The brotherhood that existed down here was so much stronger to me. And I'm not to take anything away from the West Coast. Those guys, it was cutthroat for a little while in the 80s as they were establishing themselves. Now they do all look out for each other. But I think back in the day here, we were looking out for each other even when it was competitive. You know, even when things were a little bit tougher. And, you know, so now in 2016, unfortunately, my father passed away suddenly. And we have a family business in Laplace. I do security, fire alarms, camera systems, and so forth. And I have to run the family business now, so I'm not touring. One of the goals that I had when I started this all so long ago was that I want.
That's a good one.
Before I roll out, I want to stir the gumbo pot. In your opinion, who is the hardest member of the band to mix?
Of a band.
Of a band to mix for.
I guess like
the
drummer,
hardest
bassist.
member?
Yeah.
Well, I can
Probably
tell you,
the front of house guy.
I can tell you this: the bass player in any band, and a lot of bass players are going to love me for this. The bass player is the key to the mix. If you don't have a solid bass player, you can turn it into a train wreck really fast. With that being said, it's also, with a good bass player, they're not the most difficult band member to mix. I think the biggest thing is the dynamics of the singer. If you have a singer who's tromboning the microphone, that causes signal differential. It causes it to go from fullness to AM radio and back and forth. You know, I'll divert from this for a second. My hero story. When I went out on the Poison tour, I'm a huge fan of music, as I said, and I'm also a huge fan. You remember the days of going to the record store and reading the liner notes and who produced the record, who mixed the record,
Sure.
all the credit and stuff. Records have their own sound. Every band has a sound that they capture. And I had some heroes as I got through the years, especially into the 90s when I started studying more of these guys. And so when I was on the Poison tour with Faster Pussycat, the first day in the pit, I get out to front of house and I introduce myself. We're the opening band, and the guy, I meet the production guy first. Then I meet Poison's sound guy, and he just says, "Hi, I'm Angelo." And I said, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jay." And so I turned back around, and Winger was on that tour. Winger's guy, I'm talking with him. Of course, we're out of the way at this point. We're not allowed to touch anything because they're setting up for the headliners and getting ready to sound check and so forth. So I just wanted to introduce myself. And somebody walks up and goes, "Hey, Akiri, what's up?" And Angelo says, not much. And I was like, that's Angelo Acuri. His hair was long in the 80s. He had cut all his hair off. I'm like, oh my God, that's Angelo Acuri. And for most of you out there, you have no clue who the guy is. But to me, it was like, I don't know, a NASCAR person meeting Richard Petty or something. You know, I mean, this guy was the guy. He was Dio's engineer, did all of Dio's records. You know, he did the hearing aid We're Stars. You can see him on that. He was the engineer on that. Just a guy I really respected and admired. So I turned back around and said, "You're Angelo Acuri?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Dude, I'm a huge fan of yours. Let's just get this out of the way right now." Well, later on, this big guy is back by the thing, and he turns around and he goes, "Yo, Quigley," and I'm like, "Is that Laurie Quigley?" And he's like, "Yeah, he was doing sound for Cinderella." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I'm standing here in front of the house with Laurie Quigley and my two freaking heroes." So on top of all of that, now I'm like, okay, there's no pressure here.
No, not at all.
He says, "Okay, we got you 16 channels on the end of the board. That's all I get for my whole band. So I got 16 channels, and you're not going to have time to sound check." In an arena in North Mississippi. It was the first show of the Poison tour that year, 2001. It was in somewhere up in North Mississippi, like near, like north of Starkville or somewhere up that way. Anyway, regardless of that, so I'm in an arena, 20,000 people, hundreds of thousands of watts of power. I got my little 16 channels way over here on the end of the board.
Got you, Allen and Eve.
No, well, no, it was.
No, I'm just saying, it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
your
it was
little
like,
wedding.
But
PA.
it was a big Yamaha XL4, but he just gave me. I mean, Yamaha 4K, but he just gave me the last 16 channels. So I was like, I can't make any noise. I understand that, but could I at least look at signal on each instrument? And just like, yeah, go ahead, just leave the board muted. So I'm on a talkback, and I'm like, kick drum. I look, I dial the gain to where I think it needs to be. I set the EQ where I think it needs to be. Snare, boom, 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 make sure all my instruments are working. I brought all the channels up on a complete guess, unmuted, and the band started. And I had to bring the vocals up about 5 dB. Everything else was pretty much right where it was. And Angelo looked at me and he goes, "That was either a damn good guess or we need to talk." And I said, "Well, I just based it on my input gauge." He goes, "That's exactly what you were supposed to do." And you know, Quigley, as we did a few shows in there, he and Quigley spent some time talking to me because I just wanted to pick their brains. I mean, this is an opportunity of a lifetime.
Right.
And one thing, so this all leads me to, I guess, one thing Quigley told me. He said, "Your job is to make the band sound as good as possible." And he said, the simpler you make it for yourself, the better. You don't need gear. You don't need all this extra this and extra that. Just take what you have and do your best with that, and it will always be okay. Wow. And all my nervousness at that point went away. I embraced him because he talked to me like a peer, not like, I mean, you're talking about Aerosmith, Kiss, I mean, Lenny Kravitz. I mean, this guy has like done it all, and for him to be that kind to me was priceless. So as I pass on to other guys, you know, at the Whiskey, we used to have students show up. Every now and then I'll get someone, they'll write me on Facebook, "Hey, I'm coming to your show. My nephew is interested in doing sound. Can you watch what you do?" And, you know, the simpler you can be with it, the better. Remember, this all started out, I have a killer car stereo. Remember, that's how this all started.
That's right.
I have a killer car stereo. So I used to take albums and run them through a Radio Shack equalizer and basically remaster the albums when I was a teenager to make them sound a little more like I wanted them to sound. So now, fast forwarding when I was up in Jackson, Mississippi, 2008, 2009, since I just gotten back from touring. Chip Matthews contacts me. He says, "I got a club up here." Matt Roberson, who I spoke about earlier, is doing sound. He did sound for Charade. Ray Charles, amazing engineer, decided he wanted to go do something else. Chip called me up. He goes, "Hey, I need you to come run my sound at Fire, my club in Jackson." So I go up there. We have 24 18s with 30,000 watts of crown power. I was in heaven. I was. Now it was the service department of an old Cadillac dealership.
Is that Macrotex?
Like your the Mac, yes. Like your family had the dealership. Imagine the entire service department being a nightclub. So that's what it was. So we had this enormous sound system, and we brought in Hinder and Seether, and so in doing that, one night my friend Clay Edwards, I don't know if Clay's watching or not, but Clay Edwards says, "Hey, you know, I have this band coming in called One Less Reason, and they're the #1 band on MySpace." So we're talking about back when MySpace was relevant.
Yeah.
So was it 2007 or so?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I never had a MySpace.
So I go and I see this. So Chip and I walk across the street to the Lamar, which is now, what's it called? I don't know. Somebody help me out. It was the Lamar's where Zebra used to play in Jackson.
Huh.
And so we go over there. The room is completely packed. And there's people outside who can't get in. And Clay's the promoter, so he walks us in through the back door. And I'm watching 1,500 people, mostly girls, singing every word to every song. And I look at Chip and I said, we don't know what's going on in the music business. We don't have a clue what's going on now in the music business. Because we gave up on it years before as far as new stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Well, we met Chris Brown, the guys in One Less Reason, gave me a copy of one of their CDs. I listened to it all the way home. Listened to it more, listened to it more, listened to it more. We booked them over at Fire. I did sound for them over at Fire. There was 1,700 people in the room.
That's a good show.
And yeah, back then nobody was drawing crowds like that.
Yeah.
And singing every word. And Chris and I just hit it off really well. He goes like, "Man, you made my band sound great. I could feel it from the stage. It was, you know, it was just what I was looking for. You know, would you?" He said, "I want you to do sound for us at other shows."
Cool.
Well, they had a big showcase going on. Chip called me up. He says, "Chris Brown's playing for Kim Stevens, Kim Stevens is the guy who signed Zebra. He lives in Mandeville."
Nice.
Oh, he did. Covington, somewhere up that way. And I said, "Wow, it'd be good to see Kim." He goes, "We'll grab some effects out of the thing. We're going to go up there. You're going to do sound for them so they sound right." So we drove up to Jackson, Tennessee, did that show. Chris had just gotten, it was Everyday, I think it was Everyday Life. One of the records had just gone gold. He had just gotten his gold record.
Nice.
And so he's, so if you guys get a chance to check out One Less Reason, just go to YouTube. We got a huge catalog of music there, and we're working on a new record right now. So one of the things when I talked with Chris and so I was mixing him. So I was doing Lillian, I was doing One Less Reason, bouncing back and forth. And we went out with Hinder for a while. One Less Reason did. It's all before my dad passed away. And one of the things I talked to Chris about, I said, when I got in this way back when, I said eventually I wanted to end up working on records. I wanted to mix records.
Okay.
Because so many records that I listen to, and you fans out there can relate to this, I think, is you go see a band and live, they're just like this incredible energy, really full, thick, powerful band, and you're like, I bought their CD and it doesn't sound like that. They don't sound like that. They sound different. And I always felt like there are records out there that I really, really like the way they were recorded and mixed.
Sure.
And there are records out there that I would just love an opportunity to remix this record. And so with One Less Reason, since Chris owned the studio and he was his own record label, the guy, he was very blessed, very well off, could afford to do his own stuff without a record label, without management. And so, and really for a creative person like that, having no handcuffs, no restrictions whatsoever, allows you to put out your best work. And so he did a side project called Giuseppe Moses, and he says, "You want to mix something?" He said, "I'm gonna give you a song off this Giuseppe Moses record." He said, and I went up to Memphis. I bought this Intel Mac 8-core computer, Pro Tools. He loaded it with plugins. And I went to his house in Memphis, and he said, here's the song, bringing it onto the computer. I'm going to work on some other stuff. You play around with it. And when I come back in here, I want to see what you did.
Oh, nice.
So I spent a couple of hours playing around, getting acclimated with Pro Tools. I knew the things I wanted, but I had to find them. You know,
Sure,
you go
sure,
into
yeah.
plugins and effects and things, and so you got to go looking around and then, oh, is this one good? Is this one good? So I spent a long time working, and the song was called Lifer. If you look up Giuseppe Moses Lifer, that was the first, since the Charade album, that was the first thing I had mixed since Charade in 1990, when we started mixing that album, was, you know, just a few years ago for the Giuseppe Moses record.
Yeah.
And so when so he came back in, and I said, well, hit play. And he started listening, and he was like, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Because Giuseppe Moses is more of a 90s sounding thing, in the lines of Matchbox 20, bands like that. So he was more looking for that sound. And so we got it. So fast forward 2014 maybe, Blueprints for Writhing, it's a One Less Reason record. It's just about to go gold. And it, as a unit, I think he sold probably 1 million downloads off of it, of individual songs, but as a unit, I think it's getting ready to go gold.
Nice.
So anyway, he said, you want to get your hands on some heavier stuff? He said, this record's pretty heavy. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to put out a record that when people listen to the record and then they come to the show, there's a huge similarity between the two. Not a live record, but an alive record, if that makes sense.
No, that's good. Good.
So I was a big fan of like the Alice in Chains Dirt record.
Oh.
You know, just everything was on the edge of the speaker, in your face, and it was just like, you know, right there. So we started playing around with Blueprints, and first song was All Beauty Fades. I wasn't happy with the guitar tones, and Chris said, well, what do you mean? I said, I'm just not digging it. So he went back and he recorded something on a Marshall. Sounded
Sorry, I
really
didn't win
good.
on it, but Donald Martin, man, that's cool, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, Donald. Yeah, I wish I would type up some more questions, because I feel like I'm just rambling.
I don't think anybody's complaining.
As long as y'all are interested in
Yeah.
this stuff, it's great.
Nice.
So I wasn't real happy with the guitar tone, but you know, I was like, okay, this guy's nice enough to let me mix his record. I'm not going to start critiquing it before we even get started, you know. But I did. It was like, it wasn't what I envisioned. You know, everybody out there, when you hear music, something inside of you hears it a certain way. And when you hear it a certain way, thank you, Donald. When you hear it a certain way in your head, like you could play me a song, like one of the things, I call it a gift, call it intuition, whatever you want to call it. I could sit down with Steve Blaze, and he'll just pick up an acoustic guitar and go, check out this thing I'm working on. And he'll start playing. And he gets into this riff. And he's only playing an acoustic guitar. But in my head, I hear strings, I hear the bass, I hear the drums.
Huh.
I hear all these other things, even though the only sound in the room is that. But I'm hearing all those other things with it
Nice.
when I listen. So Chris would play something for me, and I'm like, there's going to be strings. He goes, I'm already working on it. Just give me a minute. We don't have it in it.
Indeed.
So he knows, you know. So we sat down. So I said, look, Chris, I'll make the best out of this. I said, but if you could do me another rhythm guitar track, just plug in that Marshall or that Orange. Orange makes some really great sounding amps. I said, plug in one of those and let's see what we get. So we brought that in. There's one extra track. So I get to work. I'm 2 or 3 songs deep. And there was a song on there called The Wrong One. And I hear this Alice in Chains like wall of guitar thing at the end. I was just playing it as a demo. There's no mix. I'm just hearing the raw instruments. And I'm like, dude, why didn't we start with this song? I said, that's what I want to do. I said, we're going to get big. We're going to go bigger than the Dirt record with that guitar tone. He goes, impossible. I said, no, I'm going to get a bigger guitar tone than Dirt at the end of this song. And so he goes, well, what are we going to do? What do you want to do? So he's at the console, and I said, well, let's get the drums straight. So we get the drums all straight. And he's a Pro Tools master, so he's editing and moving stuff around and doing this and that. And finally we get everything where it is. And I said, forward me to that ending. And it kicks in, and I said, how many guitar tracks did you do there? And he said, I think I got four different amps. So I isolate the 4 amps. I'm like, I think I can work with that. So he goes, all right, what do you want to do? I said, well, I said, I want to stereo image it first, and, you know, we'll do a little EQ. So he starts doing like minor little tiny things. And he's like, you mean like that? And I'm like, no, dude, that's, no. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, why don't you grab your phone, go play on Facebook for an hour on the sofa in the other room, and just give me the thing. He's like, well, alrighty then, you know. And he gets up and he walks out, and I grab these tracks, and I take one guitar amp at a time, and I shape it, and then took a stereo imaging thing that I use live as well, and shot the guitar. So one guitar became 6 guitars, spread at different points from right to left. And I did that with all 4 tracks. So we went from 4 guitars to 24 spread across a spectrum. And it was something that I had learned a long time ago, but I perfected it, or I say perfected it. I improved upon it when I was working with Tracy Guns. Tracy has a very thick, rich, good tone, just like Steve Blaze does. And when I was working with Tracy would never handcuff me on the things I did with this guitar. I remember we were in Japan playing this giant room. It was Summer Sonic, and it was with Brides of Destruction, which was Tracy Guns and Nikki Sixx put a band together. So when I left LA Guns, it was to go with Brides of Destruction. So I got to tour with Nikki Sixx for 2 years, or a year and a half, and some more interesting stories there. But anyway, so every night I would make a recording on Tracy. He finally, during the LA Guns days, he had this little mini disc recorder, and I used to say, hey, go record that. Those things never did really take off,
right?
But we bought discs for it.
Sure.
And I'd record, and we'd play it back in the bus. And he was like, dude, what are you doing on my guitar? Dude, what are you doing on my guitar? And I was like, I really need a good stereo mix to kind of show you. I said, it's an imager, and it's doing this and doing this. And he said, man, it just sounds huge. He said, but it was all outdoor shows. So then indoors.
Got some Mike Maxes being a little interactive over there.
What is Mike doing?
Mike just joined, and
hey, Michael, one of my.
Let me guess, he's a bass player.
Yo, man, he is an everything player. Michael is insanely talented.
I'm going to rewind to a comment back here that might have to do with him. I didn't see a first name, but let's see, where is it? Andy Malnar. Max at Rock and Roll proved that when you were talking about who was the hardest member to mix.
Oh no, the bass is not, Andy. I don't know if you're mistaken. The bass is not the hardest to mix. The bass is the most important part of the mix.
Well, and maybe Max proved that.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I think so, yeah, because I mean Michael can tell you when I sound check him, it's like 20 seconds, as long as his monitor is good. But he is the most solid bass player. I mean, he's like, in my opinion, like Billy Sheehan level guy.
Ooh.
You know, it really is. You know,
there's some good musicians around here.
He may not agree with that, but Michael is just a beast. And so we're in Osaka, and we were talking earlier about line array systems.
Yes.
So the most expensive VDOS system that was available at the time was huge, and there was a 50, 60, 80, well maybe 80-foot span between the stacks.
Wow.
And they were set back, and the stage came out like maybe 30 feet past the stack. So Brides of Destruction would play Shout at the Devil. They did a couple of LA Gun songs, a couple of Motley Crue songs, and then all the Brides of Destruction songs. And I'll never forget Tracy Guns walking out. That first note, that dong, dong, da, that big chord that he just rung out. I had Nikki's wife, Donna Derrico, standing right next to me, and I looked at her, and she and I had become friends. She's from Alabama. She's a sweetheart lady. I said, watch this. And she's like, what? And I said, just listen. And I had my stereo imager on this hand, and I usually push it up a little bit, and the room was so lively and so big, and I had 2 mics on Tracy's rig, so I had the 2 mics into the imager, so it was 2 times, so we had 12, a total of 12 guitar signals coming out at different pan points throughout this giant array system.
Wow.
Tracy stepped out center stage and he hit that chord, and when he hit that chord, I pushed a little too hard, but it was dramatic. I pushed that imager up, and guitar was coming from Los Angeles and India, is what it felt like. Wide, and surrounded the whole stage. And Tracy just looked up and went. And that was one of the biggest compliments I had gotten, just seeing the look on her face. So, anyway, so when we got to the wrong one, I said, I'm gonna stack all this up, and so we stacked it up, and
Andy said no, he was up front.
it was up. What you mean?
Max.
Who was up front?
Mike Max was up front.
Uh,
Andy's probably gonna have to remind us about the comment.
Yeah, Andy, you're gonna have to be a little more.
Yeah, that was like
specific.
45 minutes ago, man.
Yeah. So anyway, so so I built this thing up, and so I went online and I pulled up YouTube, and I pulled up "Them Bones"
Ooh,
by Alice in Chains,
great song.
and so because it had that wall of guitar, so I'm like referencing it, switching back to the wrong one. So I'm referencing them back and forth, and when I got to where it was about twice of "Them Bones,"
We talked about Max's sound that night.
Oh.
Rock and Roll, he was front and center. Superior sound.
oh, gotcha, okay.
That sounds like a
Right.
compliment.
Yeah, Andy, good. So, yeah, my friend Bobby Frustick chimed in. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, Bobby. I got a little story with that, too.
Just a little one.
Yeah, always a little.
These are awesome stories, though.
So I get this thing, and the speakers, you have, in the studio, you have reference speakers,
Sure.
and you have
Yeah,
big speakers. I turned on the big speakers, and I hit the end of this song, and when those guitars kicked in, I was like, whoa, it was bigger than I expected. So I immediately hit the space bar for pause. So I went out and got Chris, and I said, come on in. And he walked in, and he hit play, and he was like, holy shit, dude, you think that's enough? And I said, reference it to Dirt. So we went back, played Them Bones, went back there, and he goes, okay, you got bigger than that. So the song The Wrong One by One Less Reason, if you ever get a chance
I'm
to
gonna
check it out on YouTube. The ending, the beginning of the song is very slow, but it's a psychotic outburst of the guy. The guy in the song is in a straitjacket. Basically, he just murdered his girlfriend, but he's telling the story of why he murdered her. It's one of those, if I can't have you, then nobody can, kind of thing.
Karen, you listening?
And he unleashes all of this
My wife.
rage, and the rage comes out in this wall of guitars. Speaking of walls of guitars, Lemmy, God rest his soul. Lemmy was my friend. Lemmy and I sat at the Rainbow at the corner on the video crack machine doing trivia. Now, so many people were intimidated to go talk to Lemmy. Daryl and I walked up one day and just, hey, Lemmy, how are you doing? He's like, doing great. How are you? And I was like, well, could I buy you a drink or something? He goes, don't waste your money. I got an open tab here. He says, but if you want to sit and chat for a bit, I guess it'd be okay.
Nice.
And we sat, talked about music. Lemmy was one of the most intelligent guys. Really, really smart guy. Knowledge. I mean, I took him on in trivia, at least once a night, and it was a waste of time, but it was a chance to just hang out with him.
Sure.
Super sweet guy. And it was so funny because he, what was Elvis's third cousin's second dog after his first divorce that lived with them in Kentucky but didn't move with them to Atlanta? Oh, that was Flufferella. Lemmy just knew like everything about everything. It was insane the way he knew that kind of stuff. And I didn't get to see Ronnie Dio, another one. Really super intelligent guy. I met him in '89, and then actually spent more time with him later when I met Angelo.
Nice.
And didn't get to go see him when he was in Houston when he passed away.
Why?
But
Andy's chiming in again.
Andy, what it says, half of them's in the house right now. Get Power trying to chat on here. on here one night. Yeah, absolutely, man. You know,
Come jam.
I came in here. You know, Dominique called me about coming in just for a little different perspective. There's a lot of bands. It's just amazing, the bands that are setting up acoustic sets and you know, that gift of music. We talked about when we very first started, the healing power, the positive energy of music in general. You know, Randy Jackson is doing his acoustic stuff,
sure is.
and my friend Daryl Arnold, we talked about earlier, they've got a room set up similar to this. They're bringing in different bands every night. You're able to tip the bands if you want to. No one's expecting to be tipped.
Right.
Brian Jones from LILIAN AXE, who's former singer of LILIAN AXE, amazingly talented guy. He's doing acoustic sets. You know, get out and support those things. You know, those are things that when you're sitting around and you're bored or you're getting stir crazy. Some of us, like I still work. We're with the alarm industry. I'm life safety. So I have to, you know, I'm fixing fire alarms and things. Yeah. So I get an opportunity to get out of the house a little bit. But for all of you guys who are big music fans, the best way that you can really, you know, not only supporting the artists, because they're hurting right now. You know, they're not able to go out and play shows. Some of these people play music for a living.
That's what they do.
They don't have a day job. And so supporting that, and then I encourage you, you know, New Orleans has always had a very strong music scene, always. And when this whole thing is blown over and you get a chance to go out and see, you know, Power Shrine, you get to go out and see Sledgehammer and LILIAN AXE, and if Crowbar, if those guys decide to do a local show, and No Idea and the Chiwis and all of those bands. My friend BJ's got Nashville South, a great country cover band. Yeah. Holly Lavallee, all of the members, Steve Corona, all those guys. You know, go out and see those bands, Catch 22 and Floodgate, and then you got the NOLA Rock Show, which is going to be a new thing.
Yes, indeed.
That's getting ready to hit, and they're doing Journey first, and nobody does Journey like Derek Lefebvre. I mean, he's just a freaking beast.
Oh.
And you know, and then they're going to do Foreigner after that, from what I'm understanding. You know, so there's such a great talent pool in New Orleans. And
Absolutely.
One thing, like I said, way back when, we all supported each other, and we're doing it now. And now more than ever, you know, people ask me about, you know, how I feel about this virus and the quarantine and all that. I personally, I'm not scared of it. I fear for the world as a whole.
Me too.
You know, I don't, of course, my mom's 78, you know, I don't want her to get it. I feel like my immune system is very well capable of taking care of it. I could be dead wrong, but that's how I feel about it. But I think the world is going through changes, and one thing that's, no matter how much we've changed, music is still something that unites all of us, you know. And, you know, now more than ever, one of the real tragedies of this incident that the world is going through right now is if we don't learn anything from it. You know, learn to save money, learn to be more cautious with how you interact with other people, learn better hygiene. I mean, that's, you know, a big thing. Learn to wash your hands.
To take care of each other.
Look out for each other.
Yeah, community.
Offer for elderly people. A lot of elderly people caught this by doing their own grocery shopping. You know, go buy groceries for your grandmother, your grandfather, you know, your aunt, your parents, whatever. Go do those kinds of things. And then when this is over, don't forget about it. You know, people say, well, 9/11, never forget. You know, there's a whole generation that's grown up that wasn't even here for 9/11.
I don't even know what it is.
And if you don't pass that on, their generations. My little nephew was on earlier. I don't know if he still is. Patrick McCarroll.
He wants that hoodie.
He wants my shirt. But you know, when he and I were going to a show together, One Less Reason show in Tennessee. Uncle Jay, I got some CDs for us to listen to on the way up there, and I'm expecting some, you know, Nickelback, Breaking Benjamin, that kind of thing.
I like Breaking Benjamin.
People like those bands. I'm not cutting down those bands, but for me, it was an assumption of his generation that I would be listening to that all the way up to. He pulls out Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ozzy, Iron Maiden. Yeah, I couldn't have been more proud, you know.
Solid.
And not because I want him to not like new music, okay? Nothing to do with that. But everyone needs to know where it came from. Everyone needs to know You need to listen to Beatles records. You need to listen to Led Zeppelin records and Queen and Cream and Aerosmith and all those things. You need to know where it came from. For biggest thing, those singers didn't have auto-tune. Listen to the Little River Band. All those harmonies were done with no auto-tune. Listen to those power vocalists like Gino Vanelli and Steve Walsh from Kansas. My God, that guy's just like unbelievable. Lou Gramm from Foreigner, you know, Ronnie James Dio, Rob Halford, Tony
Derek
Harnell
LaFleur.
from Tony Harnell from TNT. He's getting ready to do a live. I encourage everyone, keep up with Tony. He hasn't done any live stuff yet, but I think he's getting ready to set something up. That guy's got the smoothest voice you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
John Corabi, people like, you know, just, and look, the list, I could sit here and name off for 3 months. But, you know, the thing is, if your kids, if the younger people don't get to hear or appreciate those things, they have nothing to compare. They have nothing to you know, they don't feel the roots. I mean, going back, you know, those guys grew up on Muddy Waters and, you know, Coltrane and you know, things that were coming up through the you know, Fats Domino and Buddy Guy and you know, all these different influences from the 40s and 50s and 60s, Hendrix and you know, the Beatles certainly, and Roy Clark. You know, how many rock and rollers have ever watched Roy Clark play guitar? I mean, that guy was just insane.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then I've got some, you know, guitar shredder hero, Joey Tafoya.
Ooh.
Become a dear friend of mine now, but that guy, you know, is unbelievable in the shredder world. You know, Tony McAlpine and guys like Tony plays Chopin and then picks up a guitar and sets it on fire.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much of a variety of stuff out there. I tell you, you know, we were talking about One Less Reason earlier. One Less Reason's guitar player, Cody Landers. He's 23 years old, maybe. This guy's a phenom. I mean, just unbelievable guitar player.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, if you get a chance, One Less Reason is, you know, let everybody know this. I talked with Steve Blaze about this and Chris Brown. We are working on, LILIAN AXE is working on their new record, and One Less Reason is working on their new record. And both records may drop somewhere around the same time. Now, because One Less Reason has never played down here, we are looking to bring them down, so we'll have a One Less Reason LILIAN AXE show down here, probably somewhere like Southport Hall. Ooh. Would be great. But we're going to need everybody to come out to support that. It's going to have to, you know, we really want to appreciate that effort and that music that's going to come together. It's going to be, you know, I don't want to say old school versus new school, because both songwriters are just absolutely amazing in how they write. And, you know, the new LILIAN AXE stuff is just insanely good. It's very current, and so forth. And then, in turn, LILIAN AXE is going to go up into the Memphis area, and we're going to do a LILIAN AXE One Less Reason show up in Memphis as well. So we're working on trying to put that together. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I'd like to know, I mean, got a show of hands down here, if, you know, if you guys would be into that and would support that. Would be really nice to know.
I would.
Would bring that kind of stuff together.
We could promote it right here through Crescent City Gumbo.
Grew up listening to 80s rock and 90s. Love listening to oldie but goodies. Yeah, Tyler, I mean,
yes, that's my cousin.
It all comes together. You know, it's all coming in. Remember,
love watching Randy Jackson on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's Tyler as well.
Yeah.
Bobby Hotard.
Bobby Hotard.
Power Shine's new single.
Okay, so Power Shrine's dropping a new single tomorrow. Hey, Bobby, thanks for letting us know that.
Right.
Those guys are amazing musicians as well. I give Josh a hard time about his guitar tone, just because I like to bust on him. But those guys are just insane. Can't wait to hear the new LILIAN music. Yeah, Steve let me hear some pieces, parts, and it's good stuff, really good stuff. You know, Steve is just one of those very gifted songwriters, and that's, you know, I'm blessed to work with him. I'm blessed to be his friend, and you know, the guys in the band, you know, Michael Max is just a beast on bass, and you know, I'm really looking forward to working with Brent Graham. I loved working with Brian Jones. Brian Jones is a dear friend. In fact, I recommended him for LILIAN AXE 10 years ago, whenever it was he got hired. And great guy, great friend, did a fantastic job with those guys. And he's just moving forward into some other things in his life, you know. You know, happy to see Rob Hovey playing drums, and then to see Steve and Michael and Danny back together in Sledgehammer is you know, is a real treat for me as well. So it's kind of, you know, those were the guys that when I got started, they were the guys. You know, they were the guys who believed in me enough to give me my opportunity, and then going forward from there. So I'll give you kind of back up a little bit. You guys want to hear a Nikki Sixx story?
I do. I mean, come on, Nikki Sixx, yeah.
So, and this is nothing dirty, nothing drug related, but Nikki, I guess you say, being in a shell. So we leave to go on tour with Brides of Destruction, and for anybody out there who tours, there's a ritual of you get out of town. So we get out of LA and get to some little podunk town that had a 24-hour Walmart, and you'd go in and you'd buy, you know, waters and snacks, and you'd always get that egg crate cushion for your bunk to give you extra padding, and you know, shampoo, soap, different things. You buy all this stuff. And so we get out of town. We're all sitting in the front of the bus talking. It's like 11 o'clock at night. And so first things, Tracy tells the driver, or tells Brad. Brad tour managed Brides as well as, so I'm out with my dear friend Brad Nelson again. And Brad says, we're making a Walmart stop. And Nikki's like, what the hell is a Walmart? And Tracy's like, dude, you've never been to Walmart? And Tracy's just such a laid back guy, you know, and he never feels like he's better than anyone or anything like that. And so, you know, going to Walmart or eating at Waffle House, things like that, would not, you know, it was fine with all of it. So we stop at this Walmart, and we go in and we get our stuff, come out with a basket. You got 2 or 3 bags of things, you know. And so we're on the bus, and everybody's, you know, you got drawers, you put a few DVDs in. Hey, this is my snack drawer, you know, you put your snacks in there. And so fill the cupboards and the whole deal. And so Brad's like, where's Sixx? And I said, I don't know. Was I supposed to keep an eye on him? And he's like, well, he hasn't come out of the store.
Uh-oh.
And he's like, son of a bitch, he probably ran into some fans and they won't let him out. Jay, come with me. We go into the Walmart, and it's 15 people in Walmart this time around. I mean, it was in like nowhere, California. And Nikki is coming out through the checkout with 7 baskets of stuff. And he's got Walmart employees. And he looked at us and he's like, dude, this shit is cheap. Nothing, it doesn't cost anything. He's like, how come I never knew about this place before? We're pushing all these baskets. We're loading the underbelly. He's got stuffed animals. He's got stuff for his little girl who's now grown. He's on the phone with his wife, Donna Derrico. Have you ever heard of Walmart?
Oh, no.
She's from Alabama.
Oh.
So she's like, well, yeah. He's like, how come we never shopped there? I bought all of this stuff. I spent $100. So we're all laughing at him. And he's, you know, he's freaking out over Walmart. And so he picked out some warm-ups for me while we were in the Walmart. And he's like, those are you. And I still have them. They're stretched and worn out and probably not even fit them anymore, but I kept them because he picked them out.
Sure.
But, you know, back then he was a very down-to-earth guy. I've heard now that, you know, he's gotten a little more arrogant, I guess. But back then he was a real trooper to us. So I can be thankful for that period when he treated us well, you know.
Yeah.
But and then his first Waffle House was the other thing. As soon as we got south of the Mason-Dixon line, Tracy saw a sign for Waffle House, and it's like, tell the driver we're going to Waffle House. And again, Nikki is, what the hell is a Waffle House? And he goes into the Waffle House and sees the All-Star breakfast. He's like, I get 2 eggs and bacon and grit, whatever grits is. He said whatever grits
Never
is.
seen a grit before.
And it's like, yeah, it was like being my cousin Vinny. and for $6.99, I'm like, dude, this beats the hell out of Rock and Roll Denny's. And that was the night he asked me to do sound for the Motley Crue reunion tour. And then to learn the ugly side of the music business, I went through all of that. Brad and I prepped stage plans, everything. He had Brad and I believing that management did. It wasn't on Nikki. Management had us believing we were doing the tour. And we did all the prep work and all the leg work. And then right at the last minute, the manager sold the tour to VH1. And VH1 staffed the tour with all union guys, which that's the way that works. I mean, nothing against union guys. Hey, that was their gig. But it was disappointing, to not be able to do that. But Nikki hooked Patrick. You saw Patrick up earlier. Nikki hooked us up with some tickets at Biloxi when they came through for the reunion tour. And Patrick looked on his phone and he goes, Uncle Jay, these tickets were like $3,000. We were like 5 rows. I mean, you could almost reach out and grab Alice Cooper's cane. So Nikki looked out for us there. But, those were fun times, again, doing all these tours and meeting so many people. We got to tour with Queensryche and with all these other
people are loving this, man.
That's good. That's
got
good.
some hearts, some thumbs up.
I'm glad y'all are enjoying it. This is different. I'm not singing any songs. I hung my keyboard up a long time ago.
Yeah.
Joshua LaRose jumped my case the other day. He told me that I need to finish writing some of the music that I was working on. And I probably do. And I'm working on some soundtracky stuff. All right, so we're back on.
Yeah.
All right, so
my phone was dying. I'm sorry.
Finally got, getting myself a MIDI keyboard and start playing again. I picked up my guitar the other day. It was funny because one of my, we talk about life goals, lifelong dreams. One of my lifelong dreams is to be on stage with Michael and Steve and Danny and play a song with them. I've never done that before. I got up and played a little bit with Randy Jackson when Charade opened for him just to do a sound check. But I never, I got my start in this business because of Steve. And then, I met him first, and then, of course, Michael and the rest of the guys. And, through all my years of playing, I don't claim to be a great player by any means. But I started playing my guitar again so that I can learn at least one song that one night at a Sledgehammer gig, I want to be able to step up on stage and play a song with my musical heroes, with my guys.
Absolutely.
And so that may happen in the next year or so. I picked up my guitar the other day and I was like, wait, I used to play this. And it's like, if you don't pick it up for 15 years, it's not, you don't just pick it back up and start playing again. So
got blisters.
Steve gave me some exercises. He said, this will put you right back in shape. And so nice. In the next month or two, I'll start getting my chops back. And so who knows, maybe, towards the end of the year, early next year, I might get up and do an Iron Maiden song. Ooh, that would be great.
Perfect.
That might take me 10 years to learn that.
We got time
anyway,
right now.
We got some questions. Anybody got any questions?
Tyler said, great stories, man. Andy said, Lillian Axe, King's X, Power Shrine. I was lucky enough to play
Danny Mike at a Power Shrine gig. I saw that, and I saw where Steve and Ronnie Snow played together at a Power Shrine gig. That I just saw that today on YouTube. Ronnie Snow was, a guitar virtuoso from New Orleans. And he and Steve were the guys back then. And unfortunately, Ronnie slipped down a dark path for a little while. I won't go into any details. And I'm so glad to see that he's back playing again because his talent is just unbelievable. And I'm so glad that he was able to pull himself, back together and that he's playing music again because the world deserves, to see guys like that play. And, we take for granted sometimes, the things going on. You start looking at all the history of New Orleans music. Steve's brother, Craig, started out in a glam band called Calamity Jane. He was Craig Blaze.
That sounds familiar.
And he was Craig Blaze because at that point, being Steve Blaze's brother was great. And then Craig broke away from that and got into playing with Crowbar and then playing in Zach Wild's band. So from these other bands that started, early 80s, you've had some of the brothers and cousins and even probably some sons or daughters that are now doing music because of the things we started back then, and I tell you what, if you're looking, any young people that are watching this, it's being in the music industry is very rewarding if you're single and you don't want to sign divorce papers at some point. Getting to tour the world, it's like being in the Navy or the Army without all the rules. Getting to see all these places, meet all these people, and you'll find that, especially traveling with music, when I would go into foreign countries and places where, I was nervous because the news and I'm talking about years ago, not just current news, you felt like the people in that country would despise you because you were American. Yeah. And when we got to those countries, the people weren't that way. They were very kind and united by music. And I think that's a truer representation of the world as we live in now. I don't think that there is nearly as much hatred out there as people would lead you to believe.
Oh, true. It's all propaganda.
I think that we're always going to have differences, but we're united. And I have never seen anything that unites people more than music. It's I'm a huge fan of so many genres of music. There was even some hip hop that I enjoyed in the late '90s that was very well done. Lil Troy from New Orleans did an album called Sittin' Fat Down South, and I only listened to it because one of the guys that worked at my club in Jackson would play it all the time on the PA, kind of low. And I looked at Chip one day and I said, that's a pretty good record. So I don't want to hear about my hoes and my bitches in my car and my 27-inch wheels and all. None of that, but the inner city stories. And then, my personal playlist has ABBA, has, Elton John, Queen, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, and Pantera, and everything in between. So Michael Jackson, everybody got freaked out on Thriller, but what about Off the Wall? I thought Off the Wall was just an
Off the Wall was great.
Record.
Hey, you got some more comments, man. They rolling in. Andy's been busy over there.
Yeah, Andy, Black Label Society. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said Crowbar. It was Black Label. Well, Black Label and, he was in Crowbar before Black Label. Listened to music my whole life and picked up on the drums and played with buddies in Slide Elson. He plays with Tyler sometimes. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's Tyler jams.
So, and my friend Bobby was on there earlier. That's my tournament fishing partner because I fish a lot too.
Yeah.
Was talking about, right here in New Orleans, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, but Misha owns, they opened a studio at the corner of Broad and, it's North Broad and Esplanade Studios. It's an old Presbyterian church. That place is just absolutely amazing. I put the fire alarm in there when they built it, and I was just in awe. The big pipe organ, and everybody's recording over there. I mean, Clapton just got through recording over there. With the Kermit Ruffins, Trombone Shorty, and the list goes on. They've won a bunch of Grammys out of there. Movie soundtracks that get recorded there. A lot of stuff being composed there. Well, one night, this is I guess another hero story. One night, lightning struck the building. And the alarm system was going nuts. And it was about 9 o'clock at night. And Misha called me up and he said, we're doing sessions. The alarm won't stop ringing. Could you please come fix it? Got up in flip-flops and shorts. drove up there, had to remove a brick out of the wall where they had enclosed one of the modules. It got hit by lightning, and it was burning up hot. Replaced the module, got the alarm system fixed, and he's like, "Man, thank you so much. You know, I got a real important session going on." He goes, I got somebody I want you to meet. I'm like, "Oh boy, I'm in shorts and flip flops. Please don't be a hot girl." He's like, "Jeff Glicksman is downstairs." I was like, "No way." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "No, man, don't fuck with me like that." I'm sorry, I don't know if I can say that, but anyway.
Mute.
He says, "No, he's downstairs. Why don't you come meet him?" I go downstairs. He opens up the door of one of his studio rooms, and there's Jeff Glicksman, guy who produced all the Kansas album, Left Overture, Point of No Return, and on and on and on and on and on. Plus, the guy's responsible for like 80 million records sold. So he takes a picture with me, starts telling me Steve Walsh stories. I'm like, "Man, I can't believe you sitting here talking to me like this." He goes, "Well, look, man," he says, I'm just a guy, you know?
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, you're just like one of my damn heroes, just a guy," you know? And so Misha tells him that he says, "Well, you know, Jay's working on records. He's done a couple of records for a band from Memphis in the House of Blues studio, which was the House of Blues studio is one that Chris Brown had bought, and it's being renovated right now." But so Jeff went and listened to some of the stuff I did with One Less Reason. And Misha called me and asked me if I would be interested in helping on the new Kansas album. I'm like, "Really? Like, what do you want me to do?" I was like, "I just want to watch." He goes, "Well," he said, "Jeff, you probably, will be placing microphones and helping with developing, getting the right positionings and sounds and whatever." And I was like, "Holy God!" Just imagine the wealth of knowledge that will be picked up, will be gained from watching someone like that work. So, sometimes there's little fringe benefits, Tell us about the what that got away. The one that got away.
Yeah. He also said Ghetto Boys. Scars actually is a hell of a guitar player.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them, but next time you see me, Andy, which I know you'll see me at a show, you can turn me on to some of that. That would be great.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So tell us about what one that got away? I guess he's talking about Fish. If he's talking about women, tell me about the 17 that got away.
Oh, wrong bait.
Oh man, that's cool.
Oh.
Yeah, fishing. Right now, I'll kind of get off subject a little bit.
No, this is on subject.
If it wasn't for being able, I listen to my music. I've been playing around with Pro Tools. I've been playing around with. I've been doing live recordings of the LILIAN shows and the Sledgehammer shows, and they go straight to a hard drive, and I play around with some of that. And be nice, maybe one day. I don't know if there's a way to play music through all of this.
Yes, there is a way.
Okay. Maybe I'll bring some stuff, let y'all hear some of the stuff that I'm doing, and then I'm gonna probably do my own live video at some point of me working on Pro Tools doing some things. I don't know if you guys would be interested in seeing something like that or not, but where I actually take the raw tracks and start, going through the enhancements one at a time to build it to what it's supposed to sound like.
With explanations like a how-to video, or
sort of, but I mean I can't get into too much detail.
More of a hey, look, this is what we do.
Mostly because it's kind of like how you cook a gumbo, putting taste. So
fishes.
A lot of the things that I do with sound are put in taste. Hey, do I like this? Let me try it.
Sure.
Oh, I hate that. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Or I could use it for this. Or, it's a lot of experiment. But when you get in the studio, you can play with stuff with no consequence. Live, it's live.
Oh yeah.
It's like doing theater. Like we were talking about your aunt earlier.
Yeah.
She directed me in a few plays. I actually got to do one because of her. Perry Martin, who is a Tony Award winning or at least a Broadway caliber director, I got to play the lead in one of a Perry Martin production, back in 1997 because of your aunt. And that was a lot of fun doing that show. And so but all of the escape of whatever whatever it is that you think about your daily routine. A lot of us don't think about the importance of music or hobbies in general enough. And so when right now we have downtime, and so the first thing I was like, what am I going to do with all this time? Well, practicing my guitar is one thing. And then Joshua LaRose brought up the other day about you need to finish your keyboard stuff, your music, your stuff you've been writing. And he's one that will stay on my ass about it, And then also getting to go fishing. I have a 21-foot Gambler bass boat, and it's really nice. And I fish competitively. My friend Bobby Frusnick, I don't know if he's still watching or not. He and I are tournament partners. We fish on some high dollar stuff. Takes a lot of time, but people say, "Oh, well, it's competitive, and you got to be stressed out." Or whatever. No, it's being out in nature. When you grew up in South Louisiana, you were going out in a boat when you were 2.
Honey Carry Spillway, man.
And so, like the other, maybe it was last trip or trip before, I said, Bobby, what we're going to do today? He said, let's just go fishing. And I thought, wow, what a very simplified way of putting exactly what we do. And instead of, oh, we got to go to this spot, we got to go to this spot, we're gonna concentrate on this. Then when the fun's not there anymore, then it becomes work. And I was so happy that he had put it in perspective that day, that let's just go fishing. And so I'm spending some time in my boat, going out and doing that, and then doing the Pro Tool stuff, and then looking out for my mom, and then the alarm systems and the cameras, and we've been in business for 40 years. My dad started the company 40 years ago, and
that's
that
longevity.
Was and our approach to alarm systems is the same way I approach sound. If it's not right, if it's not like it was mine, then I wouldn't fool with it. When I leave a customer's house, would leave my child. I don't have any children, but I would leave my child and my mother in that house. When I leave, and that's the way every system is done. And it's a shame that we've gotten into a world. And I'm not trying to just plug my business, but just we've gotten into a world where people have given up on quality. I can get that on Amazon. I can get that on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. Amazon is the biggest enemy of our economy right now, and I understand. I can only get certain things on Amazon. Well, the reason you can only get certain things on Amazon is because Radio Shack's closed, because the local jewelry stores are closed. Circuit City, yeah. The record stores, all that are closed, and they used to employ local people, and they paid local taxes. And
Andy's working it, man.
There's your album title, Gone Fishing. Yeah, well, if y'all are familiar, and look, I'm not comparing myself to this artist, because they're a brilliant artist, won a gabillion Grammys and sold millions and millions of records. But if you're familiar with the kind of stuff that Enya does,
oh, Enya,
that's
Caribbean Blue,
that's
baby.
the vein of that I'm trying to somewhat follow with my keyboard music. It's not hard rock or anything like that,
right.
But it's that type of thing. Again, I'm in no way comparing myself to the level of talent of Enya.
Well, it's a goal.
But
You're
if
shooting
it was,
for it.
But if you had to say, well, what's it going to sound like? What's going to be sort of that big, dramatic sounding stuff?
Robert Miles, Enya.
Yeah. Bobby Hotel, I got to hang out with Wash when he worked at the LILIAN JPEG. He's working his ass
This is
off.
good stuff.
Running the board. Bobby, it's funny you say that. It's fun for me. When I stepped off stage, there was a huge void. And that's one of the things about being a musician prior to being a sound guy. is you're watching those guys up there, and it's kind of like the coach who, although I wasn't an all-star musician, you imagine if you were on a World Series team and now years and years later you're the coach. You can't get out there and swing the bat. You can't get out there and throw the ball. You get to watch it, but you also get to be instrumental in putting it together.
Live
And so
vicariously.
for me, being behind the board is that same high that I got being on stage. I am the chef. I got chicken and andouille and all the different things. It falls right into the gumbo.
Gumbo, man.
So I got all the ingredients, but I got to make the gumbo. And when I put it in the bowl, all of you people are either going to spit it out or you're going to say, wow, this tastes really good.
I want some more.
Yeah.
Come back.
So if you want to put it like that, great music and open water is the ultimate getaway. You know, it's funny. I went fishing with my dear friend Mark Dewey last weekend. And Mark works right here at Shell, right down the street.
Yeah.
And he and I grew up together from when we were babies. And he has Mark is a hugely passionate fan of music. Big. I turned him on to Queensryche, and like he's from there forward. When he found out I knew Pamela Moore and I knew Jeff Tate and all those guys, he's like, oh man. But so Mark just had this playlist in the boat the other day, and he's got some pretty good speakers in his boat. So we were rocking a little bit out there at Lake Buff, and the song "Hang Tough" by Tesla came on, and I always, when you talk about guitar tones, in fact, I even busted on Josh LaRose. The guitar tone in that song is just sick, in my opinion, just awesome.
Yeah.
And it came on. And I found myself on the back of the boat, tapping my foot and rocking my head while I'm fishing. All of a sudden, and we had this jam going. So I'm out there with one of my best friends, fishing, jamming to great music, beautiful weather, in a place that's just so amazingly beautiful. It's the last of the raw swamp. I got friend Jeffrey Delight, Miles and Faye Cortez. They're big Lillian Axe and Sledgehammer fans. They come out to all the shows. They live in Kramer.
Nice.
And it's just so beautiful out there. So I'm jamming in the boat, catching fish, listening to great music with a really good friend. I'm like, man, life doesn't get any better. And that whole day that we spent out there wasn't any coronavirus. There wasn't any anything. There was no
Animosity.
shooting. There was nothing. There was no negativity. There was no hatred.
beautiful.
It was like being in heaven, you know. And if you don't take those kinds of breaks, you're gonna drive yourself nuts. You know,
No, you have to.
You don't get those things in. Everybody needs to but going back to one more little thing on the Amazon thing, when this thing is over, the other lesson to learn, I don't know how politically correct this is or not, but we need a few less made in China labels out there, and maybe this Christmas shop at all the local gift shops instead of jumping on Amazon, because I promise you, Amazon does not need your money. They don't. And if you can find things that are handcrafted, you're in South Louisiana, there's craftspeople everywhere.
Yeah.
If you can find something that's handcrafted and built here, do that. Because every dime that's spent in China, every dime that's spent on Chinese goods is supporting and building the military of a communist regime that may not necessarily be so friendly to us when things go down. And look, I'm not trying to sway people's political views one way or the other,
Yeah.
but the common sense thing is buy as many made in America things as you can, and maybe we won't be so dependent on other countries like we've been, you know.
On that note, thanks to all the veterans and those who served and who are serving. We really appreciate what you're doing. Police, firemen. My cousin David just chimed in. He's a fireman. I mean, goes way back. I'm ex-military. We do it because we love our country, patriotism, and we love our fellow Americans, man. Got the flag hanging behind us. I mean, we're here. We love
Bobby
it.
Hotard, he grew up in Kramer. Yeah, he and I were talking about spots in Lake Buff. It was funny, Lake Buff is a lake, it's about 1.5 miles across. It is about 2 feet deep,
Yep.
except in a couple of spots. And it is never the same from day to day. If you want to see flotant, real flotant, that's the place to go do it. You will have an island, and I did this with my GPS. My friend didn't believe me. I went out there one day scouting for my tournament, and you leave trails on your GPS in the boat.
Sure.
I put a waypoint. I put the nose of the boat against an island. I made a big island, trees on it and everything. Put the nose of the boat in there and marked the waypoint. Went back the following week with a friend of mine, and I said, waypoint 333 is the island we want to go to. Went to 333, the island was 100 yards away.
Wow.
I said, it's crazy. So we get back to music stuff. So anybody got any music questions?
Hey, while we're waiting for people to come up with some questions, I have a question for you.
Oh.
You were telling me about a project that you'd like to start working on. Would you like to talk about it here, about fishing and music together?
Oh, yeah. A couple of years ago, I started thinking about, and I passed it by a few people, and people kind of liked it. So I bought a website called rockandrollfishing.com. And the idea is that we're going to go out in a boat, and like we're doing here, we're going to take some of the musicians that I've toured with out on the water fishing, and we'll do interviews while we're fishing and talk about their shows and have them promote their albums or show some videos, so forth. I don't know, you guys, any of y'all want to give some feedback on that, if y'all think that would be something that y'all would be interested in?
I think it'd be great because you'll get them out of their element, and maybe they'll be a little more open, a little more vulnerable, and open up to people like they normally wouldn't.
Well, and I think when you're out in a boat, it kind of shows you as a regular guy.
There you go.
You put on a baseball cap and some shorts, and you're not in a leather jacket and boots and that kind of thing, and just something a little more casual.
Well, with you, it's like I put my pants on the same way everybody else does.
Yeah.
But after I put them on, I make gold records.
Yeah.
Anybody know that reference? Anybody?
Yeah.
Need more cowbell?
That sounds like something Gene Simmons would say.
Saturday Night Live. That was the cowbell riff.
Okay.
I mean, skit.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. That's an awesome idea. I hope you can get that up and going. Yeah,
R&R fishing, do it.
Yeah, I have rockandrollfishing.com. It's just a blank website right now, but I bought it a few years ago to hang on to it. If you guys are familiar with some of the stuff Steve Blaze is doing, he's got a Sunday night show that's on here every Sunday. It's the Love and War show, and it's funny. It's really well done. He and Todd Schmidt do that, and Todd is an excellent videographer and cameraman and editor and so forth, but he's talking about one busy human being. That guy is in 17 places at one time, and more than Al Moran. Al can be setting up Steve's guitar, and 10 minutes later he posts a picture of him hanging out with Alice Cooper in Phoenix, and you thought Al just went to the bathroom, but he went through a teleportal to Phoenix, hung out with Alice Cooper for 10 minutes, and came back to the LILIAN AXE show. So Todd I'm hoping Todd's going to be one of the ones that will help me in filming. We're going to do it'll probably be Steve Blaze and I, because he will be the most accessible, and because I want him to be the first one, because he's my best friend and my it's where this all started. So Steve and I will go out on the water. We bring Michael with us, and then on another trip bring Danny with us. Depending on how many boats we can get. And
Andy had a good idea.
What's that?
Use drag boats.
Drag boats on a rock show on a barge. Oh God!
You got to put them in dresses, though, right?
We're not dying. I don't know about doing concerts in Delacroix, but
that's a good idea, though. I make for an awesome video.
Well, yeah. I mean,
some drag boats. That's high energy.
Yeah. Put everybody on a barge and drag them out in the middle of Black Bay and do a concert
with microphones not plugged in. It'd be great.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something that I feel like the fans would be interested in, and that people would be able to would be able to get interactive and so forth, and just kind of see everybody as regular people. People come to shows, and I have them hit me on Facebook. Hey, great show last night. I was like, well, why didn't you come say hi? Well, I didn't want to bother you. So I mean, if you're at a show and you want to come over and say hi, believe me, you're not bothering anybody. And for young people who are looking to get into this industry, or looking to see how the soundboard works and things like that, just walk over, say hi, ask, and if I'm in the middle of something that I can't break away, I will just ask you to stand by for a second, and then once I'm at a point where I can go over things with you, we've been talking for over 2 hours. And people who know me know I will talk forever. And that's, look, Josh LaRose just joined us. Man, I've been talking about you for the last 2 hours, and you just now joined in. You missed it all.
Slacker. Yeah, the first time I talked to this guy on the phone, it was over my lunch break. Good thing I have an hour lunch. We went overtime. I don't want to tell my boss. I hope he's not watching, but yeah. We were on the phone for over an hour the first time we ever interacted. So,
it's when you fill up your mind with memories, and one of the things Tracy Guns told me, he said every now and then I gotta shut you up. He said, but for the most part, I don't mind your long conversations because you have passion. And he said if none of it made sense, I'd tell you shut up and go to bed. And so. For the people who are interested in the things that I'm talking about, I guess it's okay, but that's why I'm kind of looking for questions, because I'd like to get on some other issues, or if anyone has questions about production or tour life or any of those things,
What was your favorite place to run sound? Your best gig?
The best room was probably that big thing in Osaka, where I had, it seemed like a 1,000,000-watt system. It was just huge. But,
was that the biggest crowd as well?
Biggest crowd was a festival in Belgium. It was Brides of Destruction, Metallica, Queensryche.
That's big time.
Damage Plan, God rest their souls, Vinny and Dimebag. One of the last time I saw Dime alive, it was just a few weeks before he was murdered, and saw Vinny twice after that. But been knowing him since I was a child. I was cool to me from the get-go. Yeah, Josh, I was talking about you as a child. The guitar phenom playing Mr. Crowley when you were like 4.
Yeah. Straight out the womb.
And I remember his mom, Tina, put on it was a Southern Music Festival, and we did it at the Civic Center in Thibodeau. And we got out there, and this kid, and Josh, they said, man, you got to come check out Tina's son. So because Tina was putting the thing on, LILIAN AXE was playing.
Sure.
We were being cordial, and that's exactly, Jason. That's exactly what we're looking to do. Is to mix the fishing with behind the scenes production and sharing of live video footage of shows and so forth. But Josh. So we went out there to watch Josh, and we're thinking, I don't know, he might have been 12 or 13. I don't know, Josh, you can correct me, and the guitar was as big as he was. And they break into Mr. Crowley, and we all looked at each other like, who in the hell is this little guy? Yeah. He can play. Yeah. And Josh and I have been, followed him ever since, and glad to see him, jamming with us. And he is, Joshua LaRose, I can tell you, has a bulletproof stomach.
Huh.
We go, and he's going to laugh about this, but we go to a truck stop, and Michael Max will go in and we're just stopping to use the bathroom or get a drink or whatever. We'll make long trips, and Josh would ride with Michael, and Carolyn and Josh and myself would ride in Michael's truck, like Shreveport or something. Joshua went inside, and they had some Hunt's Brothers pizza.
Ooh.
That looked like it had been under that heat lamp for about a month. And Josh looked at that and said, "That's just when it gets good."
Aged properly.
And it's properly aged Hunt's Pizza. So now Michael busts on Josh about stuff like that every chance he gets. But Josh would eat cast iron stomach, eating that pizza that had been in that heat lamp for 3 or 4 days. Anyway, it's this whole journey for me has been from Killer Stereo in my car.
That should be your band's name.
Killer Car Stereo. Yeah, my new band, Killer Car Stereo. Hey, that's Charlotte. She's known me for years, since we were teenagers, the days of Charade. Yeah, we talked about Charade a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Charlotte's been, Charlotte was a Charade fan. We used to play a place in Lafayette. Was it Grant Street Dance Hall? And was it the Sports Page? I don't know. Charlotte, can you correct me? I think that was the name of it. Something like that. Anyway,
all right.
We the whole journey has been really, really fun. And one of the things, no matter what you do for a living, no matter what, is if you touch other people's lives, if you feel a sense of purpose, you feel the friends I've made priceless friends, and there's nothing to be I feel like life has been really, really good to me, and I hope that everybody gets to be able to do that, to be able to pursue your passion. My dad used to always tell me, when you wake up in the morning, where is it that you want to go? If you walk out of the house and you're going to a factory, you're going to plant a garden, you're going to music. What is it when you wake up in the morning? Where do you want to be? That's where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And and that's Jeffrey Delot. We were talking about you earlier too. And that's the real blessing, to be able to do what you love. And I'm very good at what I do with my security and alarm systems and all of that. I don't necessarily wake up for it, but one of the good things is that I'm good at it and I enjoy it enough, and I'm still allowed to be able to enjoy my music and my other things. So that's a real blessing,
Oh yeah.
And my music friends, last night, Christian Simon from Faster Pussycat has a page. I think it's just called Social Distancing or something like that. But check it out. Last night, he and Jenna Side and some other friends, there was 6 of them. It looked like the Brady Bunch. So imagine the drunk Brady Bunch. Because they were all slamming Jack Daniels and other cocktails and telling stories. And we were laughing so hard, it was ridiculous. And if you get a chance to check out Christian's page, they're doing that, I think, a couple of nights a week. They're going to do the, it's quarantine happy hour.
That's beautiful.
And if those guys, those guys in Faster Pussycat especially, Christian and Chad and Danny, I love them like brothers. And, when I first got on that tour bus and I saw all the bottles of Jack Daniels everywhere, I was like, somebody's going home in a box. And those guys don't fake it. They live and breathe hardcore rock and roll. And if you ever go see them live, they're going to give you a raw, in-your-face rock show. Just 3 chords on a Marshall, rock and roll. Nothing fake about it. In your face, slamming Jack Daniels, smoking cigarettes, and among whatever other things that go on. They are the definition of, balls to the wall, hardcore rock stars. And they're so much fun. Well, so if you go to that page, you'll see, some of their antics. Well, mostly it's Christian, but it's a crazy group, and I'm really glad that I got to meet all of those people. Jenna is in a band called Paradise Kitty. They're obviously a Guns N' Roses tribute band, but they're all female.
Nice.
And she and Rachel Ryan, I don't know the other girls in the band, but Rachel Ryan plays drums. Rachel's one of the first friends I made when I moved to LA. Phenomenal drummer. Jenna's an amazing singer, and if you ever get a chance to go check out Paradise Kitty, they are just so good.
Take me down to the Paradise Kitty.
Yeah, and you know, we've got some LILIAN AXE shows that are going to be coming up. Rock the Bayou, I found out today was rescheduled, I think, for November 28th. It's LILIAN AXE with Firehouse, Night Ranger,
Oh,
and I'm trying to think of who else was on that. Somebody jump in. Andy.
we'll keep you posted on that through
Yeah.
Crescent City Gumbo as well.
Night Ranger, LILIAN AXE, Firehouse, and somebody else. It was a blast last year. It was Warrant and Firehouse and LILIAN AXE.
Warrant,
Man, I tell you what, Janie Lane was a dear friend of mine, and I miss him, and it's a shame he couldn't get past his demons.
Yeah.
But Robert Mason is just doing an insanely great job with those guys. He's the real deal. You know,
Nice,
singing
nice.
vocally.
It's hard to fill those gaps. It's
He
hard
and
to fill those
Janie were
holes.
very good friends, and Janie, you know, would be very much approve. Chase Tyler's another one that's playing.
Yeah.
Janie would very much approve of what Robert's doing now.
Well, that's
I
beautiful.
Mean, he's
That's
just,
beautiful.
and the rest of the band is, I'm pretty sure it's all original band. Stephen Sweet, the drummer, you know, just survived prostate cancer, and but he's still jamming, and
Cool.
those guys are just really, really great.
There's always hope.
So I don't know if you want to wrap this up for now, and we'll get together and talk some
Oh
more
man,
later.
we can do this a whole bunch of times,
we
man.
can go. I can go forever. I mean, you guys are so thankful you guys stuck with us. We've been doing this for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's
now.
2.5 hours, man.
You know, and the stories never end. You know, and this conversation, like what we're having right now, the kind of things, you know, we're on a tour bus, and you're riding 8 hours, and there's nothing much to do.
Yeah.
As Bob Seger says, they arrive in 16 hours, but most of the time ours were 8 hours. And these are after the show, you sit, and these conversations like we're having right now would just bounce from person to person. And you'd end up with 4 hours sleep some night because you stay up for 3 or 4 hours listening to the stories, especially when you're touring with Nikki and Tracy and Philip Lewis. You know, when Tracy left Guns to go do Rise of Destruction, and we had Kerry Kelly, who's a phenomenal talent, and Brent Muscat came in as well. And Kerry's a dear friend of mine. He's playing in Night Ranger now. Very good friend. And anyway, Kerry, they came in and played for a while. Tracy, what I found over the years is he's one of those guys that his creative outlet can shift gears. He'll wake up one day and say, I want to do a punk rock record. And he'll assemble the right guys to do a punk rock record. He won't try to force a punk rock record onto the guys of LA Guns.
Right.
He'll say, okay, I'm going to go write a punk rock record with these guys. And then the next day he'll like, I want to do a straight metal record, and then that might be with the LA Guns guys, and then he'll decide, I want to do something that's a little bluesy, and then he and Rudy Sarzo did some things together that were just fantastic.
Man.
But true to his craft, he'll always surround himself with the right people, and leading me back to recently, last few years, Tracy and Phil got back together. And when I started with them way back when, there's a chemistry, there's a real chemistry that happens when those two guys are together. And Phil with Kerry and the other ones, it almost seemed like he was just there because he needed to be there. And now that he and Tracy are back together, I mean, it's like Phil is 30 years younger. His voice, his appearance, everything, he's just killing it. They were on the cruise with us a couple of years ago, and it was just so great to see those guys together again. It's similar to Steve and Michael, and seeing Steve, Michael, and Danny in Sledgehammer, and Steve, Michael, and Rob in LILIAN AXE. There's just a magic. There's a chemistry that lives there, and I'm real curious. Now that Brent Graham is singing for LILIAN AXE, I think Brent is going to just fall right into that, like he's always been that guy. You know, if you know Brent, if you ever seen Supercharger, or you got a chance to talk to Brent, just a really humble, kind person, but an amazing vocal talent. And you know, the guy's got range for days, and he just you know, he's just got that it factor, you know. One of the things when we were in Charade, Daryl and I always talked about it, when I got out to LA and we'd see real bands, what I call real bands. When you go see Warrant, or watching LILIAN AXE, and watching Zebra, and watching Dokken, and watching, you know, bands like that. And then you put in your mind a Charade or a Trouble show. And it's like, we weren't that level. You know, you realize it. You realize you weren't that level. I don't think that level just happens. I think it's all about chemistry.
Sure,
now that we're older, now that we're more grown, if we put Charade back together, I think the chemistry would be there, because now we know a lot more than we did. You know, when you're green as grass, it's very hard.
Sure.
You know?
Man, our numbers keep picking up. We keep going up.
Hey, well, yeah, we'll keep talking.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bobby
Andy,
said, way to go. Keep it going.
Keep it going.
I guess he's meaning tonight.
Yeah. Well, Bobby wants me to talk about fishing some more. We need to go this weekend, man.
Yeah.
Baton Rouge was another gold one. Kerry Keeling. Yeah, Kelly Keeling. The band Baton Rouge, you know, Lance Bulin. It's funny, Viper Room story. Lance Bulin was in a band called 24K. You remember 24K way back in the day. And then he went on to play in Baton Rouge and then disappeared. When I get out to LA and I'm at the Viper Room, I'm setting up one day, and there's a band called Puzzle Gut that's going to play that night. I get the sheet from the manager, and he's, okay, you got these 4 bands tonight, 3 bands, whatever it is. So Puzzle Gut. So I'm on the stage, and I introduce myself to the guys, and the guy says, your accent, New York or New Orleans? I said, New Orleans. So our singer's from New Orleans. I said, really? I said, well, I know a lot of musicians from New Orleans. He says, I said, what's his name? He said, Lance. I said, I know a guy named Lance playing a band called 24K. That's him. I said, no way. I hadn't seen Lance in 20 years.
Man.
I said, no way. He said, yeah. I said, don't tell him I'm here. He said, we really don't know you. I was like, well, okay. So, Lance walked in, and I pulled up like Daryl did with Leif Garrett, you know, when he said, you know, what are you looking for, a special kind of girl? I walked up behind Lance and I said, hey, what you gonna do about the Good Guys, which was 24K's big hit. And he turned around and he goes, what the and he looked at me and he goes, dude. I said, I just moved out here 2 months ago. What are you doing? I said, man, I ain't seen you since you were in Baton Rouge. And he said, man, I moved out here not too long after that. And so I ran into him, and he's on Facebook now, and he's got some things going. In fact, he was doing some live stuff too.
Nice. Support everybody that's going live.
Everybody that's going live.
Some really good shows out there.
Yeah, there's some, you know, and one of the things that you're going to find with these live things, there's no pitch correction, there's no auto-tune.
Raw.
It's a guy and an acoustic guitar. Chris Brown from One Less Reason did one the other night.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have a mic. He's singing into his phone.
Yeah.
With an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
There's no delay, no reverb. None. And I tell you what, you get a chance to check out Chris Brown. He's going to do it again this week. I'll post it on my Facebook to let people know. But he's going to be doing that. And I tell you, that guy has got soul. It's unbelievable. He you know, he's one of my best friends. He's like a brother to me, really. And his music still gives me chills. You know, I mean, I'm one of his biggest fans. And Chip Matthews and I go up there. Chip goes up there a lot more than I do. But you know, we've been with those guys since they were the MySpace band. You know, and now that they're just recorded. They're recording a new record right now, and I'm going up to mix it this summer once all this quarantine breaks.
There's a guy, Casey Saba, does a show every week, every day now. Casey Saba, he's a great guy. 2 songs a day. Usually he stretches it past that. He takes your requests and does it the next day. Go check him out. He and I talked about this show today, about all this and what's happening. Yeah, check him out. Third Gear. Oh, wait, check out Crescent City Gumbo, because they actually host live bands, like full bands. We got gear, we got lights, we got a PA
Yeah, this
in
place
here.
is pretty crazy setup.
Got a
here.
little Midas console back here that we run the band through with turbo sound PA up front, pointing straight back, no monitors. Pretty raw. It's always live.
Tyler said he loved watching Zebra in Slidell. The last time Zebra was in Slidell for that, it was the memorial, that military
That sounds familiar.
tribute thing. It was a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. I did sound for that.
Of course.
I did sound for them, and I actually got to hang out with my good friend Mark Townsend. He worked for the production company that provided the PA, and he and I are childhood friends. He's one of the first person that taught me marching drums before high school. We were about 7th grade.
Nice.
Before I got to Jesuit. And hey, Napoleon Bronco is on board.
What up, Jay?
He's a real big LILIAN AXE fan.
The Veteran
good
Fest.
guy to be around. Yeah, the Veteran Festival.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, we did that. So yeah, speaking of LILIAN AXE, they're finishing up a new album right now up at Malaco.
Yes.
And my biggest that's my entire audio and music career goes back to me as an 18-year-old kid walking up to the stage at Fat City with a band called Oz just got through playing, and my jaw was still dragging the ground after watching this guitar player. And I walked up to Steve Blaze, and he wasn't even Steve Blaze then, but and he introduced himself, and we got to talking. When he told me his last name, I said, "You went to Jesuit?" He goes, "Yeah, I did. I know your brother," and we hit it off. And I'd go hang out at his house. I can remember pulling up my Toyota with my kick-ass car stereo
Yeah,
that started
man.
again, and pulled up at Steve's house, and we had he walked out with the new Iron Maiden album, Number of the Beast. He said, "Bruce Dickinson from Samson is singing for Iron Maiden now. Put this in." And we got in the car, and we burned a half a tank of gas riding around Metairie with that shit jamming wide open. Pulled up to his house one day, took the cassette out, and WRNO said, Crazy Train was just going off the radio, and he said, "The late, great Randy Rhoads." And we were like, late? It was a day that Randy Rhoads died in a plane crash, and there was no internet back then, so we had to wait. There was no you had to wait for like the magazine
Yeah.
to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't even get mentioned on WWL.
Nope.
But we went through so many things together. He started dating a girl in Jackson, and I was dating a girl in Jackson. And after we had established ourselves in Jackson, the first time Lillian went up there, I thought Jackson, Mississippi was like driving to Canada. I mean, I had no perspective, So I was dating this girl from Jackson I met in Fort Walton Beach, but I was like, I can't drive up there to see you. It'd take like a month to get there. I'm just a young kid, didn't know anything. So Steve and I started driving back and forth to Jackson together, dropped him up at his girlfriend's house, and I'd go visit my girlfriend. And then we got to be friends with all these people at the creek, and it was, I mean, to be around at that phase of the New Orleans music scene with all the great bands, Razor White and Melange and 24K and Zebra and LILIAN AXE and Straight Jacket Smile and Dark August and all of those bands, and so many of those guys now are still playing music around the city, in different bands, and it's great to see that. It's like like I said earlier, for people who missed it, this whole community grew up as a unit of green, didn't really know a whole lot of how the whole thing worked, and we all sort of learned it together. And over the years, everyone fell into place. The great musicians stood out as great musicians. I ended up in audio. Some people ended up doing lights. And it was all fun, but everybody landed where they were supposed to land. And like I said, my biggest deal now, Bobby just brought up a great point, my friend Bobby.
Yeah.
I think it is one of the biggest mistakes, tragedies, injustice, whatever you want to call it.
Injustice.
We have Jazz Fest, which celebrates music. It is in Louisiana. It spotlights all of Louisiana's jazz and blues artists and gospel choirs, which are great. They're fantastic. But I've never seen Lillian Axe at Jazz Fest, and Zebra's been there once. I don't know if LaRue has ever been there. I know Better Than Ezra has been there, which I know Better Than Ezra has sold a lot of records and this, that, and the other thing. But you got to start going back in Louisiana music history. There are at least two rock bands, Lillian and Zebra, that are still together. And for them to not be included in Jazz Fest is a damn shame. It really is. It really is a damn shame. So I'd like to see more of that. Even if they alternated or did every third or fourth year, at least be proud of all of it, Yeah.
There's room for them.
And
they deserve to be there.
It absolutely deserve to be there. I mean, both bands have sold millions of records and have toured the world. They're world renowned. Yeah. And, with Lillian Axe, I was talking to Steve about this a while back, and with all the respect in the world, I don't ever think Lillian Axe was not significant. But like I told Steve a few weeks ago, Lillian Axe is becoming extremely relevant again. And what I mean by that is a whole new generation is being exposed to them. And they are realizing just how great the songwriting. And then they go back, they hear the newer stuff. And then they go back into the catalog. And they're going all the way back into the mid-'80s and finding all the Lillian stuff, all the Zebra stuff, LaRue. All those bands, because people are starting to go out and see bands again. And it's like Bon Jovi made $40 million personally in 1991. In 1992 he didn't make $1 million. What, did he forget how to write songs? No, the whole industry just shifted away from that. But it doesn't mean he forgot how to write music. And all of these bands are putting out really good records over the years. People just have to go back and find them. Go look at your favorite records. There's several Scorpions records that came out in the 2000s that I didn't know anything about, and now I've gone back and listened to them and I'm like, wow, great stuff. And you almost like, you wonder why you didn't pay attention to it before. But the whole Lillian thing is, like I was saying, that's the root of what got me going. Started at a Zebra show at Chezami, into me introducing myself to Steve and hanging out at his house and us bonding, and I didn't even know how to plug in a guitar pedal, to, hey dude, do you know how to do sound because Jesse didn't show up, to my answer being, I got a killer car stereo. Then finding Mo taking me in, showing me things. I've just been very fortunate, step along the way. And luckily I had a knack. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to hear, and if my opinion of what I heard was good, then I just had to mechanically figure out how to make it do that, and that was the part that got learned, and with all of that, you get to go to Easter Mass at the Vatican, and you get to have a Swedish girlfriend for 11 years. And
on the Swedish bikini team.
She should have been.
She should have been.
And and just meeting people and doing all these things, it's been great. I'd like to see some more questions.
Rockfest?
I feel like I'm getting. I don't want to bore everybody. I know we've been talking forever.
Almost 3 hours, man.
Yeah, almost.
Herschel said Rockfest? Question mark? Like I guess for Zebra or Lillian.
Rockfest. Well, Rock the Bayou, which was supposed to be in June of this year, just got rescheduled for November 28th, and Lillian will be there. Zebra is not. Now the JPAC show that Lillian just did was originally going to be Lillian and Zebra, and something happened with some scheduling conflicts. So you may see, we did one up in Alexandria earlier this year, Zebra and Lillian Axe, and I'd like to see that closer to New Orleans, but you guys are going to have to be the ones that come out and support it.
We're going to make that happen.
Those bands have a lot of expenses in getting everybody together. So it's going to have to be a really big turnout. I mean, if we could sell out Southport Hall, is it about 2,000 people?
Oh, I don't know if that many, but Southport, they can fill a lot of people. Hey, I don't know if I told you, but I was part of the crew that installed the sound system that's currently residing in Southport Hall.
That was the one that used to belong to the Mollies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, half of it belonged to the Mollies.
Yeah.
The other half belonged to Paul Guidry at All Pro Audio. So who got me into this?
That's a nice system to work on, you know.
Yeah, it's all Crown and all JBL.
House of Blues isn't loud enough for me, but it is what it is. It's very clear and clean. It's a tough room to mix.
Sure. It's got an odd shape.
It's got some characteristics to it. Locally, JPAC had a great system. Stephen Baracco's doing an awesome job keeping that system up. I don't know if you know Stephen or not.
I know who he is.
Yeah, he owns a production company as well. But he's really got that thing nice, and they were very kind to us. He and Cherie Pons. I don't know if you remember Billy Pons from way back. That was Cherie's brother.
Not right off.
They treated us very well at JPAC this year, and I'm hoping we go back. If any of y'all know JPAC, write them and let them know we want LILIAN AXE back.
Yeah.
And maybe Lillian Zebra could do JPAC. You know, we did the Civic a few years ago, and it was completely sold out. So, you know, and then like I said, if you want to keep up with what's going on, Randy Jackson is doing live stuff.
Yeah.
And then Steve and Brent just did a live LILIAN AXE thing the other day, and I think they're planning another one here soon. And if you tune in Sundays on the Love and War show, I think it starts at 7, Steve Blaze and Todd Schmidt, they will let you know probably what the LILIAN live schedule is for Steve and Brent to do their thing. But all of these bands, you got to think about it, folks. Some of these bands are okay. You know, they've got royalties and things like that, that their families are okay. But there are a lot of bands that are doing these acoustic sets, and they're putting up, you know, their PayPal for tipping and things like that. And believe me, some of these people need that for a living. Like they can't pay their bills without playing gigs. So anything you can do to go watch those guys, you get some really good music. You're gonna, you know, have some entertainment. If it's worth $5, $3, whatever.
And they'll talk to you. They'll interact with you.
Yeah, and just, you know, go appreciate that music, because those are going to be the most talented people you're ever going to see. Because there is no auto-tune. They are playing that instrument. They are singing into that microphone. You're hearing their raw soul. They're sharing with you. And, you know, just go over there and support them.
Absolutely.
They need it.
Absolutely.
You know? And so I'm looking through comments, Rockfest.
Yeah.
Mike Max is going to make their rock and roll return. Yeah, I heard Michael was working on something where we're kind of going to do what we wish Jazz Fest would do. Michael's taking some initiative to make a day of rock and roll with Louisiana bands.
Nice.
And he's got some commitments from several. And we're talking about, like, and I'm not naming these because I know they're confirmed, but the kinds of bands that they're trying to do are like, you know, Lillian and Crowbar and Zebra, or just Randy if Zebra, all of Zebra can't make it. You know, LaRue maybe. If the guys from Better Than Ezra don't think they're better than that. And the American Tragedy. American Tragedy is getting ready to put out a new record. If you guys have never heard of American Tragedy, Jackie Brock and Trey Danger and Adam Dale, they've got a band from Shreveport that is just absolutely amazing. And they put out a teaser song the other day. They have an album. You can check it out on YouTube. Go listen to it on YouTube, and then go buy it on iTunes or whatever your favorite outlet is. Buying the CD would be the best thing, because you get high. There's one thing about CDs versus downloads. If you buy a CD, you're getting a WAV. The WAV file is much bigger and has much more information than an MP3. An MP3, you're getting about 30% of what was recorded. So it's pretty much a ripoff. I mean, if you can get vinyl, that's pure.
Oh, yeah.
But some bands are putting out vinyl right now. But if you can't get vinyl, at least get the CD. And so yeah, Jackie and those guys are American Tragedies put out another record. Eric Morris, the former bass player of LILIAN AXE, and Sam Pettivant from the rhythm guitar player from LILIAN AXE, have a band called Catch Velvet. I'm not sure where they stand right now, but Catch Velvet is a real treat to see as well. So when this is all over, come by and say hi to me. Come by and say hi to other people that are other musicians. Get out to the venues. Go see the shows. You know, back in the day, we would go to the Quarter Note and watch one set. Then we would go to the Paddle Wheel and watch a different band, one set. And then we would go to Old Man Rivers and watch a set.
Yep.
And then we'd go to Kenny's Key West and catch the end of something. And we'd all end up at Caleb's at 3:30 in the morning. And we would walk out at the sunrise drunk out of our minds. And that was the music scene in New Orleans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And every band, we tried to support everybody that was there. You had Mr. Bojangles on the West Bank with Ed Gwynn and Mickey Eisman. Ed and Mickey, another funny road story. Ed and Mickey were and myself were LILIAN AXE's crew for a while. They were both big guys, strong guys. And Ed was the one who saved me when the amp rack came sliding down the back of the thing. But they would make me drive. And, you know, two big guys in a U-Haul and me squeezed against the wall right here, my little skinny ass driving, headed down the bayou. And I can remember one trip, we were crossing the old Huey P. Long Bridge in a U-Haul. And there was a truck passing on side of us. And I remember going up on the shelf with the
Which
tires.
is only that wide.
And Mickey said, you trying to kill us? And I said, one of y'all want to drive? And when I came off of that thing, I almost went off the other side of the bridge because when the tires hit, the truck pulled. And loading that thing in the ice, pushing those PVFH2s up and down the things. And God, some of those stories from back then, just incredible. I just recently reconnected with Ed. I saw Mickey in Macomb about a year ago. LILIAN AXE played up there, and Ed and I are friends on Facebook. We haven't seen each other in 30 years, but that was some memorable times for sure.
Oh yeah. Speaking of memorable times, how about Galliano Nights?
Galliano Nights.
Then to Grand Isle.
Yeah. Yeah, Bobby remembers that when we had to go. I don't know if I was probably still playing in Charade. Went and did a show in Galliano. When we were done, we went to my camp in Grand Isle.
Nice.
And caught speckled trout. Or went and cleaned up after a hurricane. Most vinyl releases now come with free digital downloads, so you can buy the vinyl, easily make a CD, keep the files on your phone.
Sure.
Yeah, when you transfer them to your phone, if you transfer them in MP3 format, you just killed it all. But if you have a phone that will take WAV files, you can convert them to WAV files, and at least you'll preserve about 90% of what was recorded.
There you go.
So
now get out there and like and follow these bands on Facebook. Give them some more exposure. The more numbers they have, the better they look. The more people they have following them, the people that are going to come out and see them at the shows, they can get these bigger gigs. They can make more money. They can perform for more people and get their talent and expose you to things that you may have never seen before.
Absolutely.
So help everybody out. Get behind them. Like Crescent City Gumbo, that's why this started, was to help out people. Not just musicians, but sound engineers, people that work behind the scenes, artists, anybody that's talented, anybody that works in the performing arts. I'm not a musician by any stretch of the word, but I have worked with many musicians. I've done every aspect of stage production. I've done plays as well, and I've been out there, and that's where my pool of friends comes from. The majority of my friends do some sort of entertainment, and I wanted to help my friends out. And this all started before the coronavirus thing. I've been doing this. It started out with interviews, then we did some live music, and then all kinds of fun stuff. So please help us out, like us, and follow us too at Crescent City Gumbo, because we're actually beginning to get to the point where we're helping bands get gigs. A couple bands have approached us about helping, being booking agents for them. And I'm not so sure I want to really commit to that just yet, because that's a lot of work and I still have a regular job. But one day maybe I can do this for a living and hang out with Jay a little bit more, because his stories never end and they're wonderful. I have been enjoying this so much, especially the fishing idea. You need to get that rock and roll fishing.
You hear that,
happening.
Todd Schmidt?
Yeah.
Let's get this rolling.
Let's get it rolling.
So look, we're at the 3-hour mark. So I've got probably another month and a half worth of stories, but when
can
we
make
came
it
out
happen.
of the box, the stories were just flowing and flowing, and it was
Yeah.
funny, and we had people laughing and so forth.
Yeah.
So let's save some stuff, and maybe I'll come back in here. You guys want me to come back sometime
Yeah.
soon?
Oh yeah, come on.
And,
we want to get him back for sure.
And so we'll come back, and I'll tell some more stories, and
Maybe-
I'll gather some stories too. I was working today, and Dominique called me yesterday afternoon and said, "Why don't we do it tomorrow?" And so I made a list of people that I wanted to mention, and I hope I got everybody in there. But you're very blessed here. We are very blessed here
Yes.
to have this amazing music talent pool. And even at a local level, people ask me if I miss touring. Of course I miss touring. I miss being all over the world. I miss Easter Mass at the Vatican. I miss going to Japan. I miss being in Australia. I miss all of those things. But I got to do them. So, you know what? I'm blessed in the fact that I actually got to do those things. If I had gotten married when I was the girl who's I'm not going to name her name, but one girl who saw that there was more to me than being married with children in the early 90s set me free to go on a journey that I would never have gone on otherwise. And I'm so thankful for that opportunity. You couldn't have told me in 1988 or 89 when I was playing in Charade and going to Motley Crue shows that I'd be living on a bus with Nikki Sixx 15 years later, or that I would be, doing sound for my heroes and I got to play around a little bit in the early days with LILIAN AXE, but when they got really, really, really big, they could have said, "Hey, we don't need somebody like you anymore," but they didn't, and so it's just keeping
What you gonna do?
what you gonna do what you gonna do
What you gonna do?
Michelle and Lamar are they were the original vocalists in Nashville South, and they you talk about chemistry. Oh my God, just unbelievable. They're amazingly talented. They've got another, but I'm not sure what the new band is called. I saw Lamar a while back. He's great. Both of them are great. So if you get a chance to check out their band, just look on Michelle's page. She probably got some information about it. Very, very talented people. And I'm just thinking about more and more. This interview, this whole sit down, has really brought to the surface so many more things that I had I don't say forgotten about, but had
Sure.
kind
Put
of
them on
got
side.
pushed behind.
Yeah.
And I'm walking out of here much more thankful for this journey than realizing when I walked in. And then for all of you people who have watched and kept it interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
It makes me feel good. All the comments and likes and everything are letting me know that I didn't bore everyone to death. So
I was entertained.
yeah, well, I very much appreciate that. So let's save something for next time, and you guys, again, take care of each other.
Vintage. Troy Marks just tuned in.
Troy Marks.
Hey, Troy.
Oh my God, I was about to sign off, but I got to say something about Troy. I was talking about Troy earlier. So Troy is, as I said before, if people close their eyes, Troy Marks could get up on stage at any Iron Maiden show, and if people had their eyes closed, they'd have no idea that Bruce wasn't there.
He can fill in for a lot of people.
He's an absolute beast. Oh, yeah, so many. Back in the Razor White days, when I first met Troy, we were all just, I was in Charade, he was in Razor White, and we were playing at similar venues. We were always circling each other, and never really got to be in the same place at the same time. And every now and then we get to see him at the Creek. And, Matt Thomas had the most amazing guitar tone. Jimmy Davis could harmonize with anything. I mean, he could harmonize with that fan right there. And Troy just had that raw power. And they were just so much fun to watch. And
Great
later on, when Troy got into Sledgehammer, And well, actually, Troy had contacted me about being in No Idea, and like I said, I went and jammed with them a couple of times.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't my thing at the time because I was stupid. But when Troy got in Sledgehammer, and I saw they had added an Iron Maiden song to the list, I can tell you that first night, and my friends, I had friends standing right by me. I had chills. I had tears running down my eyes, and my knees were locking up.
Eargasms.
When he was singing that Iron Maiden stuff. Yeah. And it's not too often that you have a singer, hit you like that, but he just has that raw power.
Yep.
And being a Maiden fan, obviously, that really had it for me. Back in the day, Troy and Jimmy sounded like they could have done any Iron Maiden song perfect, the harmony and everything perfect. And so I guess that kind of stuck with me. But anyway, so let's save some stuff for next time. And I'm glad you guys, did tune in. And
yeah, thanks everybody. For sticking with us.
Yeah,
a bunch of you have been on here for at least 2 hours.
Yeah, Troy and I talked about that. Yeah, Troy says thanks for all you do. Troy, look, I every time my favorite Iron Maiden song is called Sea of Madness, and when it goes into the I was telling earlier about how I hear things.
Sure.
And so when it goes into the chorus of that song, it's so funny because Daryl was a huge fan of Troy and Jimmy as well, and it goes into the chorus, and it no longer becomes Iron Maiden. For the chorus, it's Razor White.
Oh.
To me, like I have this visual of Troy and Jimmy hopping on one foot with his bandana on, singing a harmony, and Troy in there with him. And it's so funny because it's like that's a personal thing. Like that's within me. That's how I see it. Other people may not be that way with it, but it's just so funny. And then getting to work with Troy was great, and then continuing, Steve Blaze and I and Michael, Steve and Michael and I have been, it may have been on and off a little bit, but since 1982. So what's that, 38 years?
1982.
To just be part of that entire music scene that started back then, and to be among those guys is such an honor. To just be even mentioned or being considered to be a part of it is such an honor.
Yeah.
We think of all of the amazing talents that came through all of that, and it all started with an awesome car stereo, and Mo Windhorse being kind enough to show me a few ropes, and Steve Blaze and the rest of the guys for having enough faith in me to hang on to me through my growing pains, and that's what it was.
Troy Marks versus Bruce.
Dog eat dog.
It means dog eat dog. Hey guys, thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, look, we're gonna do this again, and I got tons more stories.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Like I said, you guys really get out there and support all of the live feeds that are going now.
Repost them.
I know we
watch
tied
parties.
you up. Do watch parties. I know we tied some of you up for quite some time. We greatly appreciate all the input and so forth. Mo, we really want to know where the fish are. Mo, I've been praising you since I started this thing 3 hours ago.
Yeah, where you been, man?
Man, if it wasn't for Mo, I would not be sitting here right now, I can promise you.
Thank you,
That
Mo.
guy took me in, and he is an amazing gentleman. He is a great fisherman, and just an outstanding engineer, and a dear brother. Not beyond friend, just a brother.
We want some Mo.
And Mo, I can tell you, I got a report today. Delacroix limits of trout in Lake Campo, and full horse and plenty of redfish on the shorelines. That was the report I got today, straight from the horse's mouth.
All right.
So call me tomorrow if you wanna look at maybe planning a trip. So guys, we're gonna say good night. And
thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking with us.
Yep.
And we'll see y'all next time. We'll have some more stories to tell.
We'll definitely do this
again. In the meantime, take care of each other.
Yeah.
And thanks for all the guys that I you know, look up to and so forth for checking in. Troy, Mo,
Yeah.
Steve, and Al, and all of you guys that support us. Bobby Hotard and Josh, everybody, all my friends.
It's hard to name them all. There were quite a few.
Andy, if I left anybody out, I'm sorry, but y'all all live right here. So thank you so much.
It's a tight community. Let's keep it that way.
All right,
and let's
man.
get stronger.
We'll
Have a good one. This has been What's Cooking, straight from Crescent City Gumbo Studios. And y'all have a wonderful night. And hang in there, guys. We'll see you next time.